Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Whining On. My name is Matthew Bone, the Encourage Rogue, and today I am with the sublime Jon Hicks. Jon, please say a bit about yourself.
Hi, hello everyone. My name is Hicks. I'm a street performer and variety performer, and was trained in fine art at art college in the 80s. Worked as a scenic artist and prop maker through the 90s, and started performing professionally around 2000. So it's been pushing the 20 years in 2020. Sounds good. So I guess that's, I've been making a living at it, performing on street and in other venues for 20 years. So my training is art. So I originally started.
Cool, right? And so would you describe yourself now as a Would you describe yourself as a street artist still, or are you a performer now?
I say performer if people ask me. Yeah, that's what I give. That's the title I give myself. Yeah.
Okay, just very quickly, because right now I'd say one of the main, would I be right in saying this, one of the main performances you do is a performance where you're painting and you paint a picture which turns out to be a different picture. Yeah,
that's what I started with when I first started making money performing.
Okay.
That was the first act. So because that's my skill. That's my training as a painter, as an artist, and as a painter.
Yeah.
So,
and why would you describe that as a performing task rather than an artistry task, or a task in art?
Probably when I started doing it, it was more about watching someone paint, because I did it probably almost took them probably twice the time it takes now. But it was always meant to be a performance thing, and I was inspired by various kind of performance painters who did it very much as an act, and we do it in this kind of length of a song or two. And so that was the aim of it when I did the act. And although I kind of was trying to set it to kind of corporate things when I first started, because I've been working in that world a bit as a scenic artist.
Well, let's get to this. Really, at the beginning of your journey, why did you go into creative practice?
Really, because I went to school. I went to a grammar school where they kind of, in the 70s, where they kind of wanted to go off to university. That was the kind of aim, and I went to sixth form, and then I just messed up all my A levels, including my art A level. And then I sort of knocked around for a couple of years, and most of my mates went off to college and university. That's when there's still polytechnics, right? And then I didn't know what to do with myself, and I thought, well, I kind of, I knew I wanted to do something creative. I was good academically originally, but I just couldn't be bothered with it anymore. So I thought I'll try art college. It was kind of like I worked in a paint factory, I worked at McDonald's, and I didn't really like, I didn't know what I was going to do. And so I just thought I'd go to art college because I was good at art. I was always good at art at school. I was the kid in primary school who was like the best at drawing and all that sort of thing. So I didn't really have much of a portfolio, but they let me in. I did a 2-year BTEC rather than a foundation course. If you want to do an art degree, you normally do a foundation course. A lot of people don't know that, not everyone. So it's not like straight to A level to a degree. It's you do 1 or 2 years as a foundation, and then you choose what you want to specialise in and go off and do your degree.
In like a local college.
Yeah, normally in the local, not everyone, but normally, that would be the idea. So I didn't really have a portfolio, so I got a place on a BTEC, which is like a 2-year foundation, and then I ended up doing a fine art degree eventually. And
did you have any pretensions when you got into this? Were you thinking I could be a great artist, or?
I developed a lot of pretensions. That's what everyone develops pretensions at art college, I think. I didn't. I used to think I wanted to be an artist when I started, and then by the time I finished my degree, I didn't really want to be an artist in a gallery anymore. I kind of,
Why?
I don't know really why. I just kind of, I like making the work. I always had loads of ideas for work and stuff. And, but I just kind of thought I was a bit kind of lonely, the making thing. And I always liked showing off, right? So I finished my degree and I did a year I was in a small college. Whilst I was there, it merged with a polytechnic, and then after I left, it merged with a university. But there used to be quite a lot of independent art. I mean, not independent, but they were just art colleges, and that was it. But they're all sort of involved with universities now. But we had one sabbatical person, one person who got a wage that represented the student union, and that was the president, and I ran for that, and I got that. So I did a year as president of the union. Yeah,
El Presidente.
At the end of my degree.
And did you do that just because you wanted a year's sabbatical, or was there any other reason you went into that?
I guess I didn't really know what I was going to do. And then the guy who was president went, I was always a bit involved in the union. I was always quite kind of into the kind of community of it. I liked the community. I liked being an art student. I loved it. And I liked the community. I've always liked sort of little communities like that. And so I got involved in student union stuff and was like ENTS officer one time and was like a student rep and that sort of thing. And so the guy who was president kind of convinced me to run for it. And I didn't know what to do, and I thought it would be fun. And it actually, the thing that I took on from it into later life was developing a kind of confidence in public speaking. So I finished a year as doing that, and I was really confident standing up in front of people and talking. Like I wasn't at the beginning, but I was at the end. So that was quite interesting, and I really enjoyed that side of it as well, the kind of the public speaking, and it was kind of part of showing off,
John, can I just get you to lean forward a tiny bit? Your camera does a weird thing where what it's trying to do is it's trying to track how much light's there, and every time you move back, it looks like you're going into the witness protection program.
Oh, sorry about that. There you go.
That's fine, mate. And so you took public speaking from there, because I assume there's lots of public speaking being El Presidente. You have to address the union, you have to address the faculty, the students, everybody. And I assume there's some kind of cooperative kind of
I lost you there, Matt.
interaction, the ability to work with other people, be a good communicator within that dynamic as well as just perform.
It was working.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we're back on track. Yeah, there's like that kind of teamwork thing, working together. Yeah, there was all that.
And so what did you do when you walked out of there then? Why did you because some people live in universities, don't they? They kind of embed themselves into the ground and mortar of the school, but you eventually moved on from there.
Well, it was only a small college, and it was affiliated to a polytechnic, which quickly turned into a university. But it wasn't. I'd sort of done my time. I was down in Exeter, and there is a big university there, but we weren't part of that. We were separate to that, and I kind of knocked around for a bit, and then I used to go when I was a student. I did a bit of work in like a restaurant washing up and stuff, but I used to make most of my extra money. Although I was a student in the days when you could get a grant, right? And just before the loans. So as president, I was fighting against the loans, and we used to sign on in the holidays. It was like, God, I wouldn't do it now. I wouldn't go to art college now. Madness. But I used to make my money at the weekends going pavement drawing. Okay. So I used to.
And why did you start doing that? How could you figure out that this was a possibility?
A guy came to Exeter, pavement drawing, and he was doing these copies of like classical paintings. And he stayed for like 4 or 5 days, and he was making a fortune. We could tell he was making loads of money, right? And he would like nail a plastic sheet over it at night, and then come back and do a bit more the next day. And everyone was making a fuss about it. So me and a mate went, let's go and try that. we went out together for like moral support on the Saturday, and we did, and we drew. I drew a copy of one of Degas' ballet dancers. I can't remember what he drew, but we kind of went next to each other to help each other out. And we went to the pub and counted it, and we made £56. Was it £76? Anyway, it was so we went to the pub to count it, and split that in half, and it was more you would have made than you made like working in a pub, right, or working a night shift somewhere. So we went, this is brilliant. And then I'm going off by myself next week. That's it. So we went off. So I used to go like a lot of Saturdays. I'd go get to Exeter or get the train to Plymouth or go to Torquay or, Paynton or somewhere and draw a copy of a classical painting.
And how did you feel about it when you started? And how did you feel about it when you started doing it? Were you slightly ashamed of it? Were you proud of it? Did you feel like it was something high status, something incredible for an artist to do? What was your feelings on it?
It was like you'd untapped mine. It's like you'd uncork the bottle and you're making money. It's like I can make all. Well, this is like gold dust. You occasionally you'd feel a bit like if you weren't making money, you felt a bit weird. So you felt low status. Normally, and I had a whole thing. You've got to get there by 9. You've got to do a painting that people recognise or think they recognise. So it had to be famous. Mona Lisa, Laughing Cavalier, Blue Boy. I used to do that deer, Monica the Glen, on top of the hill that's used on whiskey bottles, right? And so it was pictures people knew. You had to draw the eyes first, and then you had to get something that they go, oh, look at the eyes. Look. And, so people thought you were clever, so you felt kind of high status, even though you're on the ground.
So just to draw back to this, you developed a technique for the way you developed the work that had a digestible element to it, right?
Yeah, you had to. I used to have a whole thing about, get there by 9. No one pays till 10. So draw really fast for the first hour and draw the eyes nose, mouth. So people have got something to look at, right? By 10 o'clock. You put your hats out, although I used to use cake tins in the end so you could hear the money. And it's harder. Ding. Yeah, and harder to nick the money. For little kids would nick the money. Put them on the corners, write thank you underneath. And then at some point write the title at the bottom. And then just work fast and then, yeah.
And so did you aim to finish the work early, or did you aim to be working on the work all the way through the day?
Well, you wanted to finish. It wasn't much worth working after 4 o'clock because it's got to start getting quiet. So it was like 10 till 4 was the money time. So finish about 3.
Sorry, carry on.
No, try and finish by 3.
Yeah, and so what I'm trying to get at there is, do you want to have the maximum amount of time where you're being paid, you working on the work, or have you standing next to the work going, isn't this wonderful?
No, they want to see you working because otherwise they don't trust you've done it.
Okay.
So you've got to be working on it. I did it for a few years, and a lot of people have seen those guys who roll out a canvas or piece of paper and they're working on it. I ended up doing that because you made more money doing that. So after
really?
Yeah.
Wow, I'm surprised. I thought you were going to say the opposite.
No, because you could do something really complicated, right? You could spend a month, even if you went out like 5 days a week, you could spend a month working on a really complicated drawing with lots of figures and all these folds of cloth. People love a folded cloth, right? And like lots of pairs of hands. It's like lots of hands, folds of cloth. It's like and eyes with highlights in. People would go crazy for that. So
unlike street work, it actually pays to have the more complicated, more intricate work for street art on the page.
Yeah. I mean, some people would like, you've rolled it out and stuck it down, you're cheating, So there was always that element to it, but you still made more money on the canvas. The stuff straight on the pavement was kind of more romantic, felt more pure, but came down to a money thing. And I started getting bored of it, and it's like, well, I just need to make as much money as I can.
Did you develop a patter? So when people started looking, did you have a way of engaging?
No? I didn't really. I mean, some people would want to talk, and then so you'd stop and talk. But I didn't really have a pattern. No, just said thanks when they dropped the money in, and then some days you didn't want to talk, so you just kind of sort of, shut yourself down. yeah, the kind of invisible headphones. Yeah.
Oh, what year are we at here? When you're doing your pavement work?
So my degree was 86 to 89. And then so I started doing that in 87. In the first year, I started doing the pavement drawing, 87. Okay. And then I did a year student union president. I didn't really do any then. And then the summer after that, I went off and did some. And then I moved back to London in sometime in early 91. I can't remember now exactly. And then I stayed with my parents for a bit. And that was like, I was like 27 by then. So that didn't last long. That wasn't really right. Yeah. And I still didn't really know what I was going to do. And I had a really good mate, who from my first art college, which was in Croydon. And she had done a degree down in Falmouth, and she'd moved up to London, and she'd bought a narrowboat. And she was broke, and she was like knocking about, and she was in bands and stuff like that. And so I went to visit her, and then we decided I should move on. So we used to sleep at opposite ends of this narrowboat, and I paid her so I could help her out and pay her rent. And then she used to come with me sometimes, pavement drawing, because she could draw well. And so that kind of kept me company because I was getting bored with it. So, but I still spent another couple of years. That's what I did, pavement drawing. And I was living on this boat, and I wasn't signing on. I just was off the radar there, just all cash.
Was that something you wanted to be? Did you intentionally find yourself in that place, or?
I didn't. It wasn't like intentional, but it was fun, and I liked living on the narrowboat. I liked we were just off Leopard Grove. It was great. There was like this little basin behind us, Sainsbury's there, and it was owned by the gas board. And she'd like squatted in there, and they got it for like a tiny rent in the end off the gas board, because it was a wasteland with glue sniffers on it. So the gas board went, well, you 8 boats can moor here, and just so we were in an association in this little inlet off the canal, and it was nice. It was a little community. So I like the community again, and I like the kind of subculture of being on the boat. It was great, and it was a good life there. You sit on the back of the boat in the summer with a glass of wine, and after a day's pavement drawing.
Why aren't you there now then? Why aren't we still seeing you on the streets of London doing your
well,
pictures?
it was. I was there about 18 months on the boat, and then I had this circuit I used to do all around London, and mostly out of London. Occasionally, if I had a bad week, on a Sunday I'd go to Covent Garden, and then you could pay for a pitch just behind. I mean, I didn't see any other drawers doing it. I just went in and said to them, could I go draw in here? And they went, yeah, you could use down there. And it was just behind the North Hall, where the market, the trolleys are now, the stalls, like the magic stall.
Yeah.
Just behind there when you step off.
Just out on the East Piazza.
Immediately as you go out, because the pavement was still flat. It was before it turned to cobbles. And it was when I was doing it on canvas, I used to take one down there, and I used to pay them 15 quid or something. It wasn't a great money maker because there's too many other distractions
things going on.
Yeah. So the best towns were like where you were a bit of an oddity, They didn't see a lot. I mean, but I used to do that. Did you have
particular places you'd pick? Did you look for places with high footfall, or places where people are milling about?
Yeah, there's a friend of mine called it the Golden Triangle. Once in Southampton had, but it wasn't a triangle. It was a golden square there, because when I used to go to a new town, because I used to travel around sometimes, I used to look for Smiths, Boots, Marks and Spencers, because they were like long-standing shops, and they could afford the best spots in the high street, and they were busy shops, right? So you found one of them, that's the place to go. And you needed a pedestrianised street where the police wouldn't like make you move for obstruction. But in Southampton, they had a really wide pedestrianised street, and they had Smith's, Boots, Marks and Spencer's, McDonald's, bang, all across the street from each other. And it's like you walked into Southampton and went, that is like the perfect spot. So in a new town, you'd look like that. But same as like someone doing a circle show, right? I mean, there were I think it was Breakers doing a show. This is what, years ago, like 91 or something, in Southampton, the day I worked there. And they were just like 20 yards away from me. I mean, it was a nice thing was you could work right near someone doing a kind of circle show or whatever, and it wasn't a problem. Because I'd just clock up the hours like a statue or something. You just clocking up the hours. Yeah. So the circle show didn't mind.
Interesting thing you said as well. I've never thought about that. Going to a new town, I look where the flow is. I try and judge it on what I see there. But looking at the infrastructure and looking at the shops and thinking they're high footfall shops, they've got buying. It's a clever way to look at it.
Yeah, I hadn't really realised I did that till someone pointed it out to me, or maybe till I got to Southampton. Southampton was like look at what you've realised. I'm not very. I was thinking about this today when I was thinking about this interview. I'm not very analytical about stuff. I don't think. And more kind of like retrospectively look back and go, oh yeah, look what I learned. But so that was, someone said to me, oh, it was the Golden Triangle, and I went, oh yeah, that's so.
And then so thought about how did this great time come to end? But I did want to say that now because I can see you want to say. What did you want to say?
No, I can't. I've forgotten now.
Fair enough. It's gone to the ether. So what you're going around, you're traveling, you're doing the street painting. Sounds like you're having a good time. You've fell into the kind of the working vibe a bit. It's, I'm going there, I'm making my money, I'm putting my work out. It's become a job, maybe. Is that?
Yeah, no, it was a job. I had a system. I used to keep a tally. I used to keep a little book, write down all the towns I'd gone to and what money I was making. And then the woman I was on the boat with, we both started dating. She was seeing a fella and I was seeing a woman. And so we used to take it in turns to go and stay at mates' houses so you could have the boat. And then she got pregnant. So she moved in with her fella and sold the boat. So I had to move.
I didn't give it to you.
No. So, I mean, we were both broke, and really, I mean, sometimes I'd have a good week and you'd make good money. So I was like kind of cash rich, and then you'd have a bad week and I was going out in the winter, and like brushing the snow off pitches and stuff like that. So it was harsh in the winter. But although the best day in the year is Christmas Eve for pavement drawing. And I used to have a thing where I used to count the pound coins. It was before £2 coins. I used to sort of roughly empty my hats or tins occasionally and go and just count the pound coins. So if I had £10 coins, I had 40 quid. That was roughly the way it worked.
So in terms of the way the denomination worked out, if I have this much, I'd have this much of this and this much of this and this much of this.
Pound coins were a quarter of your takings. But on Christmas Eve, the pound coins were a half of your takings. So if you had £10 coins, you had 20 quid, but you wouldn't have £10 coins. You'd have £20 coins or £30 coins in the time you normally have. So people just gave you more money on Christmas Eve. It was always like double the takings or triple or like, Anyway,
isn't that interesting? Because I absolutely hate working Christmas Eve. Like, it's one of my least favourite times.
I used to work
doing circle shows.
I used to work Christmas Eve, arrange to meet people in the pub, and I would count the pound coins. And when I got £100 coins on Christmas Eve, I'd pack up and dash to the pub. But it's normally by about 1 or 2 o'clock.
Do your maths at home, everybody, if you want to figure out how much you earned.
And this is in the 90s, right? So it was good money. That was really good money.
So once again, why walk away from that? Then? It seems like you did at some point walk away from it.
It was boring. It was lonely on the pavement, and it was a lonely thing to do, and it was boring. And so I moved into a house with 2 old mates from art college, and so I had to sign on, like, and go. And it's like, where were you? And I said, I'd been abroad or something, been travelling, you know. Yeah, and so I had to sign on, but it was still in the time you could sign on, and I was still did a bit of pavement drawing and stuff. That was around late 92, and then I started, you know, drifted into picking up a bit of work. Oh, can you come and help me make this? Can you come and paint this thing with me? And then I slowly drifted into like freelancing as a scenic painter, painting backdrops and scenery. And then I used to do a bit of prop making because I did sculpture as well as painting at art college, so I could make a bit. So, and I could do.
And did you say you got a bit of work there? But was there a conscious? I mean, you say there wasn't, but I just want to delve a bit deeper. Was there a conscious movement from the one place to the other place?
Yeah, there was definitely. Yeah, I wanted to do that. Yeah. So,
and why? I mean, you say it's boring what you were doing at the moment, but you could do 100 different things.
Yeah, well, it was like it was a kind of easy route, and I knew people in it, and it seemed exciting. It's like, yeah, what you get paid to like make stuff. It's like, wow, that's great, you know. And it's like I used my skills. It was still like they were my predominant skills. You know, I missed the public speaking stuff, and I missed that, but I got into this, and then also I got into as the performer. So I got into the sort of, and I got more and more work doing that, painting backdrops, and scenery.
When you're painting backdrops and set making, how much time do you have? Is it quite intensive? Do they give you a week to make something? And you have to work non-stop, or?
Yeah, you learn to work fast, and if you work too slow, you don't get hired again. Yeah,
fair enough. So did you enjoy the pressure of that?
Yeah, I liked the pressure of that, and I worked for one company quite a lot, and they came to the rave scene, and I painted backdrops for them, kind of with fluorescent paint, UV paint, and they'd come right through the rave scene, and they're really dodgy, and I met a lot of great, really dodgy characters in that studio, and I worked for them quite a lot, and they always had work going on. But they paid really badly, but they were kind of like safety net. And I met a really good mate I still see now. I'm still mates with now, and occasionally I do work with him when I get commissions at art performance stuff. And he actually, I learned quite a lot of him about painting fast, because the way they used to paint was like, well, we've got to paint this big. We used to do copies from photographs, like Mr. Spock or something, and they'd hire out these banners to nightclubs, and it was like, no, you're using too many colours. Use 4 colours and just paint them like on there. And it's like, paint this 8 foot by 6 foot photographic copy of Mr. Spock. You've got a day and a half, basically. Otherwise, it's not cost effective, you know. And then they used to start getting more work for the music.
How interesting about what we're going to touch on later on, though.
It was part of the skill that I used, in my act,
like back then, that skill is being developed, even though you didn't realise it, you know.
Yeah, and that sense of, it's funny when you start working in that sort of freelancing industry. I think anyone who starts work, they don't understand the importance of time. You know, when you're a kid and your first job, and they're like sweeping that floor, and you're like there going, no. You know, it's when I worked at McDonald's. Before I went to art college, and then when I was at my first art college, they paid my way, and God forbid working there, but it was interesting in the sort of time efficiency management. You know,
well, I suppose everything must have been precisely managed for time there. Right?
It was amazingly.
One would assume.
Yeah, it was amazingly managed, but it was funny. New kids would come in and they work so slow, and everyone was like tearing their hair out because you're in the team, right? And you've got to just learn to just do the thing. But you learn to do the thing, don't you, when you can get on with it.
And so you had some success in doing set painting then, and so people would book you again. And
I had a kind of circuit. I think people get on a circuit. You know, I wasn't like. I realised after a while I wasn't like really pushy on it, you know, and I knew people who were getting into films and stuff like that, and that was much harder, and it was kind of high end stuff, and I wasn't really at high end, and And then technology started squeezing the whole industry. You know, some of my stuff was kind of glorified sign writing, really big, massive canvases and speaker covers for festivals. Huge, massive. I mean, we did a great, like, massive portrait of Paul Weller on one. You know, I did some fun stuff, you know. But then in the 90s, computer technology squeezed the film scenics because they're dropping the CGI backdrops. And then it squeezed the kind of lower end painters because you're painting like massive banners to hang on in front of shops. So they started printing all those, printing the speaker covers, and the printing processes became massive. So, and the prices used to be more than the painters, and then the prices started dropping, and so we all got squeezed. So the work was getting thinner, and you used to make really good money, and even though you'd work a week and then not work a week, it was all right. And you know, you made good mates, and it was a fun community and all that. Yeah. But I got a bit bored with that as well, because in the end, you're just copying someone's design, you know. And I've done a fine art degree, and I kind of was into my own stuff. And I used to do this. I used to go on my creative outlet became writing poetry, and I used to go around there's like quite a big circuit. I guess it still is. I don't know. Quite a big circuit around the pubs, mostly around the pubs, in their kind of function rooms of like performance poetry. It's kind of like you know, it's like a sort of stand-up performance. I mean, some of the people, it's not. I mean, it's not all funny. It's not, far from it, but yeah, it was about being able to perform your work, you know. And
why go there? Why find yourself gravitating towards the place?
I always wrote stuff at college. I always wrote poetry and stuff at college, and I always liked John Cooper Clarke, and I liked punk and stuff, and I liked John Cooper Clarke and John Hegley, and I'd go and see John Hegley, and saw Cooper Clarke a few times back then. And so I used to do that, and that was my kind of creative outlet. And then I used to get, you go and do an open spot, and they give you 5 minutes, and then if they like you, they go, I'll come back and do 15.
And did you do that from a kid, just on and off, as a sort of very infrequent hobby?
I did that in the 90s. Started writing. I guess I like writing. I didn't really write much as a kid. I started writing stuff more at art college. I wrote a few poems, and I thought, oh, they're all right, you know. And I had a little book I'd made just as a sort of one of my pieces of work, and it had writings in, and they weren't all poetry. And then I just got into writing the poetry. And yeah, in the 90s, when I was being a scenic and painting these backdrops and stuff, I used to, I wrote a whole load of poems, and I used to go around the circuit. And
what was your first experience like? Just describe the scene as you walk in, if you remember this. The scene as you walk in, your first experience, the place, the people, the feelings you're having.
I think the first one, I did a pub in Soho, the Red Lion. Was I still on the boat? I think still living on the boat then. And I went and my mate came with me, and a couple of other mates. I think it was called the Red Lion. I can't. It might have been called the Hard Edge Club, the Poetry Club. They used to have these big names, you know, Express Excess and Hard Edge Club, and they'd be in the little function rooms above the pubs. It was great, interesting scene, you know. I mean, what a great, somebody's on the boat, living on the boat, and you go to these poetry clubs. It was a good, introduction to London, you know, reintroduction.
Yeah.
And I was shitting myself when I did the first one. I was really nervous. Yeah, and I thought I'd be all right.
And what were the people like there? Were they all kind of Cockney gangsters, or
no? It's a right mixture. No, it's like right mixture from like, you know, middle-aged, you know, arty yogurt weavers to kind of edgy, to kind of muso types who was like, you know, to sort of wannabe stand-ups. And the people kind of switched between stand-up and it sat in some of them. Some just really nervous people who just wanted to share their poetry, and they just really were reading it out of what they'd written, you know. But it was quite. There wasn't a lot of heckling because it was more accepting than that, you know. So it would lead to some dull evenings because people didn't hear. There wasn't really any heckling. It was so sometimes you sat through some stuff. You're like, oh, we should get heckled off, but
we're all too nice. So, then, what was your first experience like? So you're nervous, you're fretting. You got on stage. Was it a piece of poetry written years ago, or did you write it specifically for the event?
No, it was like 2 or 3 short poems I'd written, and I thought that was probably the best thing to do live. And I think I got heckled. So there's no heckling. I seem to remember getting heckled, and I was really shit myself. I can't remember whether it was a good. I remember one person came up to me afterwards and went, "Yeah, I like that poem. Do you want to try this club?" And he tipped me off about another club, But this is when you could buy Time Out, right? You could buy Time Out, and it was a big fat magazine, and you could pour through the listings, go, tonight I fancy going to see, a band. And you could go through and tick them off and go, oh, that band. Oh, tonight I fancy going to see a play above a pub. I don't want to spend more than £5. You go through and find it. And I don't know how you do that now with Time Out. I haven't got a clue.
Google.
Right, yeah, but it's not the same, is it? It's not all drives me nuts, that. But so there used to be a listing for poetry, or it used to get bundled in with cabaret, I think. Anyway, I did that. It was fun. Yeah. And then I thought, and I started getting gigs, and I thought I might make some money doing this, but it was, I had enough poems for a little book, but you saw people like really few and far between that made me money, and I didn't have the drive to like.
How do you judge being a successful poet in one of these gigs then? Do you kill it? Like they all really
you kill
appreciated it like fuck.
Yeah, you kill it. Yeah, you get it kind of carried out on shoulder high. No, you don't. You just what it's like. I mean, well, you tell with a hat, that you can tell better with the street show, but you could get the vibe, and you knew if you'd done a good job. I mean, obviously, sometimes people have. Once I've done it more, it becomes. You're not done your best, but people still like you because you can come in just under and still be good enough,
Yeah, but there's a question here from Alan Warman saying, "Did you do the Clinker Club?"
The Clinker Club. Where was the Clinker Club? I wish Alan could say where it was.
In London. In London. It's in London, mate. In London.
Yeah. Don't remember the Clinker Club. No. Express Excess in Chalk Farm. Hard Edge in Islington. There was the Poetry Society. There was a place in Clapham above the Bread and Roses. And then there was a few like spin-offs, and like, this came. It used to be a really nice one in the basement of a place that's in between Charing Cross Road and Covent Garden. It was lovely. I saw Cooper Clarke down there, and I performed down there as well. It was one of those places that used to be in the 50s. Tommy Steele probably played. It used to be a coffee house, and probably Cliff Richard and Tommy Steele played their guitars. And unfortunately, it's not a venue anymore, I don't think. But there were these great little downstairs. Clinker Club rings a bell, but I'm not sure. Yeah.
So were you thinking about making a book then? Were you thinking, I'm going to collect these stories, I'll become a published poet, and then that'll be the route to my cash and happiness?
Yeah. My stage name was Jonathan E. because my full name is Jonathan. My middle name's Edward. And there was if anyone's seen Rollerball, the hero in Rollerball was Jonathan E. That was his name. The 70s.
What's Rollerball?
Rollerball was a 70s sci-fi film with James Caan. Got remade with Mark Wahlberg, I think. But I haven't seen that one. But it's great.
The original.
You watch the original. I had to lie about my age to get in. I'd say I was 14, I was 13. And 1976, I think. And it was great. When you're 13, it was like, wow. There's a bunch of us from school went and lined up live. And he was called Jonathan E. And they used to chant, Jonathan, Jonathan. Rollerball was like, in a futuristic society with no violence. And they had this ultra-violent game, sport, that was called Rollerball, about throwing a metal ball into a socket. And then teams would fight each other. Anyway,
so it's like a sporty Hunger Games kind of situation.
Yeah, on a circuit on roller skates. So I called myself Jonathan E, and I had compiled a book called The Hard Line According to Jonathan E, but I never printed it.
Not yet.
No, not yet. I might go back. I might go back to it. But I used to. A lot of the poems were funny, and some were a little bit political, and some were a bit soppy. And I used to hate it when I'd been doing it a while. Sometimes people would go, and now the next Jonathan E. I've seen this guy, very funny man. And I'd be, oh no, and I used to think, how hideous it would be to be a stand-up, because you'd got to make them laugh. So when they said, oh, he's a funny guy, I was like, no, because I liked going on, and they didn't know what you would get, whether you're going to be funny or not.
Talk a bit about the intent of your content as well. If it seems like we've reached the point where it's logical to do that.
Yeah, that content was some of it was like about women and love and stuff like that. A lot of it was about popular culture and iconic celebrities. I had one about what's his name? He was like he was a great sports presenter, Desmond Lynam. I had one about Desmond Lynam, who used to present the sports shows. He was Gary Lineker. If you watch sports on TV,
I don't, but I'm sure many people are watching.
I mean, I quite like sports, so he was the twinkly-eyed, like supreme sports presenter, and everybody loved him. And so I had a funny poem about him. I had a poem about Esther Rantzen and a poem about Paul Daniels, but they weren't very complimentary. And a poem about Tommy Steele and a poem about Michael Barrymore, and then I had Did you have an intent? I mean, that's the content, but did you have an intent when you were telling them? Did you think, I'm going to change the world through my poetry, or did you think, I want to try and discover or highlight or critique? I think my art at art college and then my poetry, and it was like, if there was an intent, it would, if I wanted people to reflect on things, normally it would be, I would think you could engage them through laughter. So I would normally have a laugh in the poems, and I liked that in watching other people, and it wouldn't stop me from going, oh yeah, it would engage me more. And so I would kind of go, oh yeah, and and he's kind of gone, yeah, it's not, I mean, whether you like Michael Barrymore now after the history of his life, but it was before he'd been accused of all this stuff. And so I was like, he is an amazing performer. Right?
And still is to this day, no matter what he does with instrumental.
And what he's well, and in this line, I had lines. It was before he got involved in that young man dying, or however much he was involved. I don't know what was proven. Associated with. Thank you, Matt. Yeah. So I was kind of singing his praises, and it was like the sort of joy of popular culture, and like you shouldn't be snobby about popular culture. And then other things were like, I had a poem about not being told to clap along, and how dare you wear a red nose and tell me to clap along. That was like, that was like a funny way of going, look, if I don't want to join in, you can't make it, don't tell.
So you're using the work there to try and communicate or champion, with Barrymore you're championing, with this red nose thing you're kind of critiquing. So you're trying to use the content of your work to engage and critique and sort of communicate stuff about the world. Yeah,
I think in a small way, it wasn't like, I mean, I did have, I had a big poem about Nike trainers that was very derogatory. It was like, don't buy Nike. If you've got a pair, return them, rip them off your feet and burn them. Join me and fight a good fight. Don't buy a Nike. Just don't do it. That was the end of like. But I had these sort of statistics. But it started off kind of celebrating them, like celebrating trainers and going, ultra urban, what spacemen wear on their feet, and like ultra flash, thermodynamic, and I can't remember it all properly now, and then it kind of turned and was like, yeah, but they're creating and curing misery, working against their mental health, and then it's like 600,000 workers got paid less than Michael Jordan for his brand endorsement, and then so it turned into this kind of political rant. Most of them weren't like that, but there was enough humour in that. I hoped that people would go, oh yeah, but people didn't normally. They would just go at the end, yeah, look at my Nike trainers. Yeah. But I hated all that. Yeah. But there was a kind of
so John, why are we not? Why are you not sitting here now? Sorry, mate, carry on.
No, I've said enough about it.
So yeah, no worries. So why aren't we seeing you here now, clutching the book with prolific career in poetry?
I should have printed one out, and I could have marketed it. I could have sold one copy.
Yes.
I have entered the one of the competitions at Glastonbury one year and remembered a couple of poems, and I didn't do very well, but I think I did that Nike one, and it was like the compere went, yes, there's a very interesting political, it's like all the other people were doing real proper crowd pleasers. It just kind of fizzled out, and I got to a point where it's like I didn't really know where to go with it, and I didn't have the energy. And then I was still doing this scenic stuff, and that was getting a bit tighter. And I'd moved into this house and with these mates, and then we were moving out around 97. And then my parents both died. My mum died in 95, and my dad died in 98. And so I came with a bit of money, not a lot of money, but a little bit of money. I was in between homes, and I kind of was staying with mates because we moved out of this shared house, and I was staying with mates. And then me and my brother were like emptying our parents' old flat, and then I knew some mates in Peckham who lived in council flats, and there used to be this system in Southwark where I think it was the last council doing it, where there's this hard to let scheme, where if you were homeless, you could go on this list because they had a lot of empty flats, and you would be offered a flat within a year. And you only offered one. I think if you were like on a normal council tenant, you'd be offered 3 or something, if you fulfilled the normal criteria and you choose the one you wanted. This was like hard to let. You just had to prove you're homeless, but you could be single like me. I was at the time, and so you didn't have any really drastic needs. And they offer you one flat. If you didn't take it, you went back to the bottom of the list. That's my recollection of the system. And I had mates who'd done that, and there was a guy in housing at Southwark who had seen all these empty flats around Southwark, and he'd gone, I know loads of people who are like ex-art students who are struggling for money, and they'll do up these flats and look after them, and they help build a community. And so he'd given like guidance specifically to people he thought would help these communities. And I ended up in a council flat like 3 months after my dad had died, and in a 3-bedroom in a tower block.
Wow.
And yeah, in Southwark. A mate applied with me to help me out. He didn't want to move in, so I could get a 2-bedroom. And then there was a hiccup, and I got offered a 3-bedroom. The rent was less than I'd been paying in the shared house.
Wow.
And I moved, and I had mates around the corner, two guys who I knew through the scenic world, and one old mate. And then it was a little community. It was great. And then I had a bit of money from my parents, and not too significant, but enough to go, you know what, I'm going to do something else. And I'd been pavement drawing in Croydon. Like, mate, I still used to go sometimes at Christmas because I knew you'd make tons of money. So I used to get me old canvases. I had a nativity scene, a Caravaggio copy of a nativity scene. I used to roll it out and go really slow. So to go out for a few days over Christmas. And it might have been then, or it might have been like 5 years before, but I'd met this performer. I've talked to Gareth about this, and he went, I can't remember his name, but there was a few street performances, go down to Croydon, busking. It was a good spot. And there was like 2 or 3 of them down there sharing a pitch. They'd come down from Covent Garden. And he was down there. He had some people would know him. So he had a unicycle, yellow, with red spiral tape around it. And he had a red and yellow helmet. Some people know who he was. This is in the mid-90s. Yeah, this is the mid-90s, right? And he was a nice guy, and he came up and he got chatting to me, and he went, and he went, what you doing? I was pavement drawing away, and he went, oh, what you doing? I've seen this guy. I'd seen some guy on his travels doing this painting act. I think he'd seen the guy in the States, because there used to be a guy in the States called Denny Dent. It's Denny Dent's double-fisted art attack with 2 hands, and he was the man from the late 70s onwards. And I think he went, oh, it's like Denny Dent. It's like Rolf Harris on speed. Right? It's like not what you think of Rolf Harris.
No, not in it. No, Rolf Harris on speed is a far more threatening case now than it was then.
When I was a kid in the early 70s, when I was like 10, 11, Rolf Harris had a BBC primetime show, and in it he used to do a massive painting, big, like 12 foot wide but 8 foot high, and he'd have big.
Tell what it is yet?
Exactly, that's where that catchphrase comes from. The younger listeners, that's where it comes from. You carry around a pot of paint and you paint this thing, and it's partly the way they filmed it, and partly the way he painted it. He'd sing a song whilst he's doing it, and it would be like a sunset or something like that, and they'd pan out at the end. And you could, and then go, and there, oh, it's the sun, and it boof, 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 the highlights, and it was whilst he's singing, and someone would be dancing, and so I loved him, Rolf Harris. I had a signed photograph of him. So this guy.
Do you have a story to tell?
No, I don't. Thankfully not. I don't have enough. So this street performer, he goes, yeah, I've seen this act. It's like Rolf Harris on speed, and I kind of clocked it and went, I'm going to try that one of these days. And then I remember it was the end of '98, and I was clearing out my dad's old flat with my brother, and I'd remembered this, and I was like, one day I'll try that. And then we'd both inherited a bit of money, and so it's like, and I'd got a cheap flat, and you was coming up. Well, it came up at the beginning of '99, and we were watching the Generation Game when Jim Davison used to do it, and they had this guy on there painting a portrait of Marilyn Monroe in like 4 minutes. French guy who's still working now, and then the contestants had to copy him, had to do a portrait of Marilyn or Jim Davison or something like that. And I was like, that is it. And so I'd had this guy talk to me, and then I ripped off this French guy. I went, that's the act. And so I moved into this flat, turned one of the rooms into a studio, practiced the heck out of it, and that's how I got into.
And so is that like you put bed sheets on the floors and the walls?
I panelled the one end of this room with chipboard, so you could. I think I did, or maybe I just gaffer taped canvas onto it. Anyway, one room was just painted it. I mean,
it looked like there'd been a murder.
Yeah, a murder of a painter and decorator. Yeah.
And how long did you practice with it?
I didn't practice that long, and then I
were you like a couple of weeks or months or 6 hours a day?
No, I wasn't that kind of religious about it. I didn't. Work was starting to get thin with the scenic stuff, and I'd stopped pushing for it. And we'd been like sorting out our parents' estate and stuff like that, and I thought I was handling it all right, but on reflection, I wasn't really, and I was drinking quite a lot and not really looking after myself that well. But I thought I was doing all right with it. But I look back, I put quite well, not that much weight, but I was like, I'd never been so heavy. I was like almost 13 and a half stone or something, but it's not like me. But so I bulked. I've been drinking, and now I practiced for a bit, and then I got together photographs of like pavement drawings, and I'd done a commission for English Heritage in the mid '90s. So I had a big mat in Covent Garden where the classic musicians play down in the pit. Yeah. They took unbolted all the tables and chairs. And we did this big drawing overnight of a map of England and sort of landmark English heritage spots, like famous buildings. I did it with 3 other people, and so I got that commission. So I had photographs of that, and then I photographed some of my old pavement drawings, and then I practiced some paintings. And I kind of had this vision of being, and I knew people in the events industry, and I talked to a couple of designers who were kind of mates as well. And I went, who shall I pitch it to? Who shall I sell this idea to? So the idea was, I'd do paintings very quickly, but I'd also do paint stuff live for your event, at the event or beforehand, but it'd be kind of on location. Might do a live mural, might take like 3 hours. I'd got a gig for someone I used to do a bit of design work for, and he was like, "Oh, can you do a drawing during?" It was behind the Oxo Tower. No, behind that. Oh, it was. What's it? There's a museum as you're walking down towards the Oxo Tower.
Tate.
And there's what's it called? The wharf. There was the wharf there. Oh, it was some design awards anyway, and it was outside in a courtyard, and we did this drawing of like a blueprint kind of drawing, and I'd done this for someone, so I had photographs of that, and then I practiced these paintings. I practiced a painting of Frankie Howard in a very similar style to what I work in now, painting of Elvis that was more complicated, and I photographed them, and I had a mate who lived across the road as a photographer, and he did it. A few beers, came over, photographed them in my flat, and cobbled together. What was worked for me is I got a very good promo. It looked like 4 postcards stuck together, folded it out, printed on both sides. I threw some money at that, and I used to wrap them up in black paper and write with white writing on the front and post them off to people like crazy. And I sort of started getting gigs through that, and then the guy used to paint, and I'd done something for the guy used to paint backdrops with. The guy, Scott, we worked for this crazy guy called Sammy, and he went, "Oh, we're doing," and he was all into the music industry, and he went, "Oh, we're doing like a charity thing for Amnesty. Will you come and do a pavement drawing out the front?" And it was when I was trying to get into this thing, went, "No, I'll come and do a painting in the event." So I did a couple of paintings for Amnesty. And one worked really well, and my Scott came with me. I went, "Do you want to come?" And he was like, "I don't want to do that," but he came and we had some drinks and did this painting. And that photograph. So I could say I had Amnesty and English heritage. I've done this at events and that, and so I got a few things. And then my mate Scott, his girlfriend was a dancer, and she was going, "Oh, you should do some." She was trying to get into festivals. She went, "You should do some outdoor stuff, do festivals." And she was doing a showcase in Manchester called Extracts. And she'd started this. Are you frozen there? Oh, you're back. She'd started this.
No, I'm still here. Yeah.
She started this dance company with her mate, and she went, "You should do this. You should do this festival." And I went, "Yeah, right." Then I do this, and I didn't know what I was doing, and I decided I'd be a workman. I got a barrow made, and I got a wooden frame made. So my street show I came up dressed like a kind of street cleaner with this kind of wooden barrow with my frame inside it. And I had like a high-vis vest on and overalls. And then I had music playing, but just through like a little ghetto blaster, like really low level. I didn't know. I just didn't have a clue. And then didn't put a rope out or anything. And then just put this frame up. And then stapled the cameras up, and then spent like 15 minutes doing the big painting of Elvis. And I remember one show, about 3 people watched, and one guy went, "I'd like to book you." And at that festival, I met Matt Bernard, and he was working with a different guy doing the sand.
Matt will be on the show later on this month.
Right? Yeah.
So
Matt, who I've worked a lot with since, but and he was very nice. He's very friendly. It's kind of a bit intimidating when you first start, but I remember him being really kind of friendly. And then I was like, "Oh, that was rubbish. That's not a proper street show." And then I started getting some bookings, and it was still rubbish. And I got one booking and I had to blow it out. Started sending stuff off to
You didn't feel like it was ready.
It wasn't ready. I just had to lie and go, I'm ill. I'd kind of made up the street show in my head, and then someone went, great, we'll book you, because this flyer looked great. It looked high quality, and people didn't have an act like that, right? So they just went, I got a festival in Cardiff, and I learnt the beginning to my act now, which is what I'm sort of my act I'm most well known for now on the street and in variety and stuff, is doing these paintings of 6 foot tall, iconically famous people, and I do them in like 4 or 5 minutes, and they're upside down, and with like 20 seconds to go, I spin it around, and boom, 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 a few highlights, and put the eyes in or the hair, time to the music, and then hopefully everyone goes, oh, you know, and then and that's the.
And how did you come up with that then?
So it was. I'd seen this guy on Jim. You know, I'd met a street performer in Croydon. I loved Rolf Harris. I'd seen a French guy on Generation Game with Jim Davidson, and then it's like, yeah, that's it. And I started practicing, and then they got some street bookings and went, had to blow one out, and then went, I need to learn 2 famous people. I learned Frank Sinatra and Elvis. And I used to do, I didn't call it this at the time, but now I call it icons.
But you weren't doing the turning thing.
Not when I first started. Not the first.
So this comes in later.
Yeah, this is the right way up by doing. And also they took longer. But they were the same size. I had a frame that could be like 8 foot wide or 4 foot wide, and always 6 foot tall. So it was like, oh, you could book me for something, and I'll do like, you know, a painting of your building might be 8 foot wide. So I had this kind of options on this frame.
Yeah, so how did you go about developing the work then? Because you've got the work coming, the bookings are coming in, you've had to dot off the festival because you're not ready. How did you develop? Because, you know, your bedroom is only so far, in my opinion, you know.
Yeah. Looking back now, the 2 key festivals were Cardiff. Cardiff used to have a massive festival. Can't remember what it was called, but a big festival, a lot of acts there. Cardiff Harbour Festival, I think.
Do you know what years around this was? 97 are we at now?
No, I will say I started in 2000. I started practicing in 99, and I think I got proper.
So we're looking at 2001?
2000 first booking on the street. I did Islington Festival.
And so Cardiff is going to be that same year then?
Yeah, I think so. I did Islington Festival, and they commissioned me to learn some unusual paintings. And I took time doing them. That was all right. I was just kind of in the background. But Cardiff was a show. And then I did Cardiff. And that was when, oh, shit, I need to learn I kind of said I'm going to do paintings of famous people. But the shows were like just the length of the painting. How long the painting took was the length of the show. I didn't put a rope out. The music played really low. And I just did the painting. I don't think it was even time to the music, and the paintings took like eight minutes, too long, you know. But people liked it because it was unusual. And then
how did you develop after that then?
Tell you what was
what's the process?
I started sending stuff abroad. I just went, oh, I think it was like, I think maybe you lose your parents. You're in a flat, and it's like, I took up tap dancing after my mum died because I like tap dancing, right? It's like, oh, fuck, you've got to do it. It kind of teaches you a life lesson, you know, losing family members. So it's like, I got to get on with it. So I had tap dance by then. Not that I ever used it in a show, really. But I sent stuff out to places. I got Halifax Buskers Festival, which is one of, like, the most prestigious busking festivals in the world, right? It was 10 days. Still was painting these the right way up. Didn't have a video. I had this flyer. I posted this flyer to Halifax Buskers Festival. I didn't have email much. I don't think. I just got email. I think it was done by phone and letters and stuff. And then they went, great, we'll have you. I got there. I had a 20-minute. I did 2 paintings the right way up. They both took like 6 or 7 minutes, and I didn't have a show. Didn't have any engagement with the audience to speak of. And then I.
How did the festival feel about that?
I remember talking to the kind of woman who was the main liaison woman with the performers, and I went, "I've only got 20 minutes." She went, "Don't worry about it. Just do your thing. You're a different act. Don't worry about it." We did a lot of those big busking festivals have. There's a woman called Kelly. If people who work there will know Kelly because she's still involved with them. And they used to have this thing.
Yeah, 1 second, mate. You carry on. I've just got to go on outside. Somebody just shouted at me. You carry on, mate, by all means.
They used to have this thing where you'd do a group show. You'd do like a kind of gala night, and it was in a theatre, and they were like, "Oh, have you got something different?" So I was into this upside down idea, and I think working in Cardiff, I was doing Cardiff Harbour Festival the year before, and someone had seen my act, and they'd said to me, you do Jimi Hendrix upside down, right?" Which I didn't. So he was like, "Oh, it must be someone else." So then I was like clued up on the upside down idea. So I was in Halifax, and we were doing this gala night, and there was a pavement artist there, and they said, "Oh, we should have an art off between the two of you." And the pavement artist was like mega skilled, and he went, "Yeah, I can paint with 2 hands, and I'll do." We did a painting one each side of the stage, and I did my first upside down painting there, and I think I did Elvis upside down, and that was the beginning of doing the upside down paintings. And then it took me maybe another year or so to kind of get it proper for a show, I think. But I was just saying, Matt, I did at Halifax. There was like a lot of these big buskers festivals. You do a group show of some sort. They used to do a gala show that year. They were doing like a gala show in the theatre. So the punters paid a lot of money. I don't know whether it's for charity or whatever. And they'd go, "Oh, can you do something different?" And I was saying, I think it was at Cardiff the year before that someone saw my act and went, "Oh, do you do the upside down Jimi Hendrix?" And I went, "No, I don't do the upside down Jimi Hendrix." But they were thinking of, I think, Denny Dent from the States. So I went, "No, but I should do an upside down," right? And so when I was in Halifax with my terrible show, making the pittance on the street, in this gala, I did an upside down Elvis. I went, "I'll try this," and I did it. We did it a kind of paint-off challenge. There was a pavement artist there, but he was really brilliant draftsman, and he just was good. Like, "Yeah, I can paint with 2 hands, or I can paint with my left hand, and I'll paint with 2 hands, and I'll do this." He did like Batman or something, and I did an upside down. It was quite fun, like those. If you do those big busking festivals, often they're quite fun. People try something out. So I got onto the upside down thing. And that festival was good. There were like, I'm trying to remember the acts I really liked there. There was a Canadian act called the Silly People, who I loved. They had a great show. And then Andrew Elliott was there. Do you know Andrew Elliott? Yeah,
Andrew Elliott very well.
Yeah, he was there. And then there were quite a few, it's difficult to remember now, but it was, that you get big acts at those places. Yeah. So it was quite a learning curve watching that. I watched a lot of shows, and it was quite a steep learning curve on what to do.
But how did you feel watching the shows? Do you think like, fuck me, I've got a lot of learning, or did you feel like this is achievable? I would do this, I do that, or?
I was kind of a little bit. I didn't realise quite.
Got to go one more second. Sorry, carry on, mate.
Oh, I didn't realise.
Both of us at the same time.
That's right. I didn't. My son is asleep next door. I might move us downstairs in a minute, if that's all right.
Fair enough. Yeah, no problems. No problems at all.
I didn't realise. I don't think quite how bad my show was. I think because it was getting praise for the painting aspect of it, but as a street show, I mean, I wasn't making a lot of money, but it was. I was always into like the street stuff. I used to walk through Covent Garden and watch the acts, and I had my favourite acts, and I was, I'd make a point of going through and seeing if they were performing. I used to. My favourites were Pepe. I'd always watch Pepe, Uncle Alex Standridge and John Feely, and Great Dave. They're my three favourites.
And why would you watch those guys?
I think reflecting on them, I like the skill of like Dave, and he had some skills you didn't see, but I like their. Well, they were funny. Right? I think they were funny. I do like skill stuff. I used to like to watch Shandy as well because I like dancing. I mean, I sort of learned to tap dance, so I like watching Shandy doing his Michael Jackson.
Shandy South.
Yeah, doing his Michael Jackson. Funny, Matt Bernard was talking to me about that, and it's saying when he did Michael Jackson in the North Hall, he knew where the breeze came from, and he'd face the breeze and flick his shirt, and it would like billow out in a really kind of, because he knew what he had it like that, Boom. So it's like watching Shandy's dancing, and then I'd leave when he started talking. And that's how I hope Shan's still watching. That's a terrible thing to say.
Well, he's got a lot better. All he does is talk. He doesn't even dance anymore.
I know. I liked them because they were funny. The other three acts, they're just really, really skilled comedians. John Feely and Alex just were like. I mean, I didn't see them in other. I mean, I've seen Alex work with Jim since, I've seen Alex work solo on stage and stuff. But I did see Alex in other early acts. But I loved their show, just brilliant. It'd always be funny. Good stop. It's always going to be funny. Even the jokes you knew was like, drop. I like the cigarette packet from the kid's coat. Do you remember that joke?
No, I can imagine what it was. As soon as you said it, I can imagine how it plays out.
They get a kid out and always get a kid with a coat. I think we're going to balance a ball on his finger or something. One of the classics. They used him for something. And they take his coat off and a pack of 10 fags would drop out of his jacket. And they'd go, "What are you doing to know? What are you doing?" This is a life lesson, right? This is a life lesson. Don't ever buy 10s. So, always get, and then John would go, "That's right. If you're going, it's not cost effective." John would go on about it.
Nowadays, the akin to that would have to be a syringe falling out of the kid's pocket.
Well, yeah, you couldn't do the fag joke, could you?
No, I don't think so. So you've seen all these acts. You've watched acts before, so you've got an idea of what the circle is. What the circle style is, the way you build, the sort of craftsmanship that goes into making a show. Yeah. How's your journey start on acquiring those skills then?
So I did that at Halifax, and then I went, I've got to learn. Then I went, they used to book a festival in Singapore as well called Singapore Buskers, and I did that like the next November after that. I was still doing, I hadn't quite mastered the upside down thing, so I was still working the right way up. I think it's the last festival I did with them all the right way up.
And when you said you hadn't mastered it, you've gone and you've practiced this in your murder room. You've gone and worked on it.
Yeah, but I wasn't ready to take it out. But and then I met some other guy. I met Hoople on there, and I met Hoople, who was Pete Mielnicek and Chris Gibbs. And Chris Gibbs used to do I remember watching him doing a tumbling act in Covent Garden, and Pete Milnicek. So there was this double act called Hoople. So every time I saw them working, they were kind of clown acts, very, very funny, and a lot of people love Hoople. Pete now works solo. It doesn't really do busking shows, but still works.
I've seen him do. He does Edinburgh every year, doesn't he? Or some years.
Pete, I don't know last time he did. Does his plate spinning show?
Yeah,
now,
I've definitely seen him there doing his plate spinning.
Yeah,
within the last 5 years.
Right, very funny plate spinning show. So I did Singapore, and I met Bill Ferguson, and I met Clark, who does Mario, but at the time he was in a double act. So I met some great acts there, and I met Mr. Bunk, who's a Canadian guy who's moved indoors now, but he ended up with a great show. So I met acts, and so I watched them. I watched a lot of shows, starting out doing that, and then I quite liked the busking. I think I'm going to have to move downstairs, Matt.
Go for it.
I'm going to carry you downstairs.
We're in motion, everybody.
Yeah, hold the line.
Everyone, you get to be nosy around John's house now.
Yeah, you get to see. Sorry about that. I came upstairs.
Let's see the furnishings.
I've got a 10-year-old, and so now I'm keeping him awake. I'm next door to him. So here we go. Good luck.
You live in a dark void.
It's like a different kind of murder room. Here we go. How's that?
Frugal in the Hicks house. We don't put the lights on if we don't need them.
No. There we go. This has got more light here.
There we go.
There we are. You're downstairs now. So
we are now in. Is this the kitchen and lunch area?
This is the open plan. Yeah. There we go.
Oh, look, everyone! Oh,
yeah.
Being an artist does pay.
No, that's a different sort of windfall. Not being an artist. Where were we? So you're
watching the acts?
Yeah, I'm watching the acts. And I'd seen these acts in the Covent Garden, and I liked the whole thing. I've never sort of studied it. I hadn't studied as a performer, and I hadn't studied it. I liked showing off. I knew I had something with the painting act. People wanted it. And then, I was kind of always editing stuff, and I liked music, and I liked kind of editing the music, and what should I use in the show?
Can you go through the first few changes you're making, and how you're thinking to make them and modify it? You mentioned putting a rope out a lot of times, things like that.
Yeah, I started off going right. I went a bit generic to start with, and I was like, right, I need a microphone. I like busking festivals. I got a tour of Canada in 2004. I did 2 or 3, and I got Edmonton in 2003, I think it was.
Yeah, but
is another one, a big one.
As much as the different festivals, can we focus a little bit on the things that you're doing in terms of your personal development of your work through those festivals? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So I went. I need a bit of a crowd build. So I went for the rope. I need a rope to stop people walking up to me when I'm painting. I should do booked gigs still where I'd end up calling it icons. So it wouldn't be like a busking show. I'd do like a 10-minute show. And so I went, right, I need a rope for that. So I put a rope out, have some music for that, staple up one canvas, switch to the music for the painting, do the painting, end of the show. That was it. Right? And that I do 4 of them in a show for a book festival. And from doing the rope, I was enjoying doing the rope and stuff. And I started just kind of.
What were you enjoying about it?
Just it was nice to face the audience, right? Facing the audience, kind of setting out the stage and making a fuss of it. I remember I used to have this finish where I would pack a box. I had a box, I'd walk on with it, put it down. Before I had the rope, I could just carry it like a suitcase, right, and have my paints in the top. Do the painting. I'd have the frame already there, and then I'd come up, staple up the painting, do it, pack my box, and just leave the pitch, and just that was like I paid gigs. And one of the bookers, one of them went, stay and take the applause, and I was like, I don't want to stay and take the applause. It's like, but then
it's part of the work.
Yeah, I just want to get out. But then, as I was doing more busking
surely, before we go on, surely that's a stylistic choice. It's not a. You didn't want to get out of there because you didn't want to be there. You said you enjoyed being in front of people.
It was
stylistic.
It was a stylistic choice, and it was like, oh no, this is a kind of like terrorist kind of attack. I'll just turn up and do it, and I'll be gone. And you're like, who was that guy? And it's like, just what's he doing there? Why is he doing that? You let him do that. But then as I got more into the idea of developing a circle show, I was like, no, I'll take the bow. I'll learn to do that. And it wasn't like analytical, like I said. I wouldn't sit down and go, right, I must do this, I must do that. It was more like that's the way I was heading, sort of thing, And then, so I knew I was going to do these busking festivals. It's like, well, what am I going to do in them? And I knew I wanted this show. I wanted a show that could do that. So I was like, right, I'm going to get a mic. I know I can talk. I'll talk. I'll got a head mic, and then I would talk, and then I would do. I went down this route of doing. I developed some tricks with bits of paper, like a paper ball. I still use this with a ping pong ball, and I have a paper ball on my elbow, and I catch it, and it would disappear. But I would talk all the time, and then sometimes at busking festivals, a note would appear like, "Oh, that's a $5 bill." I'd like someone.
And so are you looking for things to do at the beginning of your show then? So you're looking for a gap between putting the rope out and doing the picture.
Yeah. So I started drifting towards this, but I was talking. So then I didn't develop so much the little quirky stuff I've got now. It was more talky stuff, and then I had a cumbersome rig to carry, 8 foot wide thing. I draw a cityscape with like these paint pens, and then I get a volunteer out. They go around the back of this. It was 8 foot wide, and there was a hole. They'd stick the head through, and I'd draw Superman round, and they'd have Superman like flying over the city. It wasn't very good. Oh, then sometimes they'd draw the bit of the city as well, and I'd tease them. I'd go, oh, that's not, what you do. What's that? It's a family show. We'd like to do something a bit phallic. I don't know. I had these gags. I'd nick gags off people. I nicked the beginning off people. I would chat to the audience at the beginning, and then it's like I'm carrying too much stuff. It's like you just want to carry a smaller frame, and then the portraits from the big hitters, and then I sort of see an act like Fraser Hooper and like Silent Clowns, and there was a festival act called. The Spurting Man. Funnily enough, I think it was Mike from that act who talked to me in Cardiff about, oh, you're the upside down painter guy. I think it was him who's she's slightly older than me. They're both doing their 60s now. Mike's anyway, he's got a different guy doing it with him now. But Bill Palmer, who's like a festival books performer. But they've been going a long time, and they had this amazing act called The Spurting Man.
Okay.
And it's kind of like The Spurting Man is a special act that can spurt water out of his body. And he stands on this plinth like a Greek statue and spurts water out of him. And they've got this pump rigged up through this plinth. And Bill plays his really grumpy assistant. And it was like in 2012 or something. I'm at a festival with them, and Bill was watching. He's a nice guy, and I'd watched his show, and then he watched my show, and I was putting the rope out, and afterwards I went, I did your rope, didn't I? I did your rope because I remember seeing you in the 90s, right, doing that, and I've nicked that the way you do it. And he went, well, you haven't nicked it, you've done your own version. But it's one of those people you see and you go, that guy's good. And he's non-speaking. He's a silent clown. But he's a deadpan, you know. I've nicked his style. I've nicked his. So I was doing this speaking stuff, and then I was doing more of these, and then it's like I've got to streamline the show. It's too cumbersome, and it's like it's too much stuff to carry around. It's it's not really. It's never was a busking show. I never made it as a busking show. I made it as a festival show. I just like those busking festivals. So, and then it's like it's not me. I like I like Fraser Hooper. You know Fraser Hooper. I went to Christchurch buskers in 2003, and that was another one that booked me because they were just wanted different. And she didn't give me very good pitches. In fact, I went back in 2011 and she couldn't remember me. but I was in Christchurch in 2003, and Skate Naked were there. Pete Milnicek was there doing his spinning plates. Fraser Hooper was there. Clark was there doing his first version of Mario, Queen of the Circus. Hot Nuts and Popcorn were there. People know them, famous Canadian doubler. I mean, I can't think who else. There's a lot of big acts, and I saw Fraser, and it's like that's just, that's great. That's, you don't
what was great.
He just held an audience without saying anything. He's like really thought his stuff through. His timing was like brilliant. It's original, funny, It was just like Pete Milnicek was doing his plate spinning, and he was like quirky and original, and there was a lot of acts there with like it was high skill acts. Of Shirley Sunflower was there, and there was she was funny and different, something I hadn't seen, and it was like there's a lot of high skill acts, but it was she booked great acts there, and back then, and that was like. You've got to do your own thing, I was discovering that you've got to find your own voice, sort of thing, and so I kind of was ditching the chit chat, and then so I don't want to talk really, and I liked, I don't know, I can't remember when I did it, but I remember being at a gig somewhere. It was Gran Canaria, a booking for a WOMAD festival, and Fraser was there, and Stickleback Plasticus, Pee-wee. You know Pee-wee?
No, I don't know Pee-wee.
Pee-wee's Stickleback Plasticus festival booked act. Although they do busking festivals with a ballroom dancing act. But very, very funny, long-standing. Anyway, this was about 2005, I think, and I was doing small circle shows as a book thing, but I'd got into this kind of grumpy deadpan, putting the rope out, making it, not letting anyone touch the rope. It's like you're not allowed, if you touch, just moving people really slowly, really kind of high status, kind of I'm the most important thing here, you've got to do what I say. And I'm less grumpy now, but I was really grumpy. And it was my way, I discovered, not through decision, but just through practice, of controlling the audience. So rather than like going, right, you've got to stand there, you've got to stand there, and I was like, there's so many people talking. I'd realised, again, without kind of making a conscious decision, it's just like, I'm sick of hearing the same lines. And I think it was probably a way of stopping myself doing the same stuff, Once you start to see a lot of shows, you're like, I don't want to do that, It might have been my training or just my inclination, my fine art training or something. I don't know. But it's like, do your own thing, do your own thing and find some way of. I mean, I wasn't doing my own thing, but painting that was as good as nicked. But
yeah, but you wanted to find your own voice. I believe is the way people are, artistically pretentious describe it. I mean, he found his voice. I really feel like this is him. Yeah,
yeah. So I got to it was sort of small steps, and I got to like 2006, I think, and I felt like I remember doing Winchester Hat Fair 2006. I can remember because the World Cup was on, and I remember demanding to finish my shows on a certain day early so I could watch England, as it happened, lose, go out.
Yeah.
I remember doing that and going, I've nailed it. I remember feeling like I had the right show, and then I had a totally silent show. I had the rope out. I had this handful of I had a bit of origami. I made a cup of tea. It was all very slow, and I had tricks with the thing on my elbow and a paper bag, the old sort of Morecambe Wise paper bag thing. And I got a kid out for a bit of mucking around. I did a bit of play with someone in the audience, not a lot. And then I'd do a cut. I did 2 paintings, one the right way up and one upside down. And then I would talk in between the paintings about the hat. At busking festivals, I'd do that and then talk about the money and go, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to do my finale. Bang. So I remember getting to that too. That show's pretty similar. I mean, I add bits and I take bits out and I check, stylistically it's changed, but it's pretty similar to what I do now when I do a show.
Did you have difficulties when you moved from speaking to not speaking with building the crowd and with having control? You said you became grumpy, but
I mean,
it must have been a hard journey, surely. I mean, I've been trying to do work without speaking for a long time, and I find it difficult to get away from that urge to want to use one of your core assets.
Yeah, I didn't find it difficult at all. I think because I was doing the 5 to 10-minute shows, one painting was always non-speaking. So I was getting I had an agent at the time, Fool's Paradise, who I'm still with, but at the time they would get me a lot of gigs. So in the UK, they get me a lot of gigs for that show. So I had this non-speaking show. So I think it was like that was what they got me gigs for. So it was the longer show, like the big circle show, the kind of busking festival show.
It's me that's trying to. I've got a shitty connection. I'm back here now. Hey, how you doing? Yeah, I'm back. Did I pause?
You did pause. Yeah, I just kept it on.
Good. Yeah. Well, sorry. Don't let me interrupt you.
So I had the short show that was always non-speaking. So I guess in that respect, it wasn't. I had 2 shows going at the same time, and that short show was getting a lot of gigs. So the longer show was mostly for busking festivals. And I was saying to Fool's Paradise and to bookers, I want to do the longer show because I was enjoying. When I started not speaking in it, I was enjoying it, and I could feel it was stronger and it had its own personality more. And so I wanted to do that more. So I was pushing to get that bookings, but it was more busking festivals still. I mean, and so no, it wasn't a difficult transition in that way. In that I did a lot already without talking. And then, I mean, I like when I'm busking. I like the chat bit. I still enjoy doing the talking, and having a bit of banter with the audience if necessary, So I'm still comfortable with that.
It does feel like, at least the way you told it, that you needed to form this character and you needed to get the talking away. It was an essential thing to break free from your idols, so to speak,
Yeah, I think, it's funny, going back to the poem I was talking about how dare you wear a red nose and tell me to clap along. I don't want instructions on the best way to make my good times roll. That's that poem, right? I don't really like all that kind of, come on, you got to clap and cheer, you got to, come on, kind of. I don't really like that. When people talk and they don't do that, I like it, So it was like, I just didn't want to, I just wanted a shot of that. And there's a side of me that's quite happy, it's that kind of like, I don't know, I think you've got to be yourself, haven't you? Also, you've got to be yourself out there. So, because people see through it. And I discovered that maybe even more retrospectively, but that's when it works best. It's like you're you. If you're trying to be someone else, you're stuffed, long term. You might make a good living, but I don't know how you can sleep at night. But no, of course not.
I understand what you mean. I understand what you mean.
Yeah, I think it's easier to develop new stuff if you're out there, because otherwise, if you're not being you constantly trying to look somewhere else for it. If you're you, it's going to start coming. You've got your character that it's like an extension of yourself in whatever way you've extended it. This is
the thing I think a lot with writing. With writing, it's quite hard that if you don't have your sense of character, at least the character you're playing, if it's not you, but your sense of character, it's very hard to think about how they would respond in a situation.
Yeah,
how they would interact, what they think about things, how those things play particularly in the street, in an open space, how that character plays these things. And if you have no idea who you are, if you're only trying to do what works, then you're not going to be able to think from that frame of mind about doing something interesting, creative, trying to say something or trying to play with the moment. You're just going to try and bulldozer over any of those issues and keep things to what you understand, what you see, as you say, what you've seen before, what you saw Larry do last week,
Yeah. And you see that on the street, don't you? You walk down Edinburgh, down the Royal Mile, and you hear the same lines, one show next to each other, and it's like occasionally I hear myself say one of those lines, during my hat lines, and I'm like, well, partly I'm like that, and then partly I'm like, oh well, what the heck, and then sometimes I'll say I've just said a stock line, and then as soon as I said it, I think I don't know. Anyway, that's whatever. It doesn't really matter. Like I say, I didn't come up with the painting act. I didn't come up with the rope, the way I put the rope out. There's Bill, and here's that, and Eric Morecambe does that, the paper bag, he's that, and I learned this trick out of a magic book, and it's just how you tell it. It's how you tell
a lot of the stuff I see you do now, there's loads of different plays and toy bits and different different mediums for play within your work.
Yes, I enjoy more and more the clowning side of it, and I've developed more play with kids in it, and in it. So now I have, the show's got longer because the paintings have got quicker. So now, if I learn a new painting, it's got to be under 5 minutes. So paintings have got quicker, but the crowd, what started as the crowd build, it was just like, oh, that's the way to get a crowd, put a rope out and then muck about. And have a gag with a staple up a canvas, and that one of the first gags is I go to hang a waistcoat up, it falls on the floor, and I draw a chalk hook, and I hang the waistcoat on the chalk hook, and it's just all silent, but it's just kind of, I think when I see shows, if you see something a little bit skillful at the top, it's kind of like, oh, well, he's got something. And people have said that to me as well when they've seen that, and they've gone, oh, well, that was kind of clever. It's not a big deal. It's kind of clever. It's more than just like standing there on one leg, So anyway, the crowd build has grown and grown into like a clowning stuff, and I really enjoy that side of it. And there's a routine I do at the moment with kids chasing me for lollipops, which I really like, and it ends up with me squirting them with water from, because I'm exhausted and I've got to have a drink of water over my shoulder, and it works well, and it gets a laugh, and it's the opportunity for things to go wrong and go off somewhere else a little bit, and that's fun, and I really enjoy that now.
And have play.
Yeah. And have play. Yeah.
So you work with a lot of the guys now. You've got kind of a touring show, am I right in saying that? Is it still touring? Right, so obviously not touring at the moment, but still touring when the world puts itself back together.
Yeah, I started doing more indoor stuff. My painting act always got books for stage, and cabaret and stuff. And I was like, I'd really like to do more cabaret and variety stuff. And I started. Well, there were two people I started working with, and who just like working them with both of them was brilliant. So there was Misbehave, Amy Saunders, and she saw me. She talks about this now. She saw me in Winchester Hat Fair early on when I started, and I didn't really have a show. She's like, I remember seeing you in Winchester Hat Fair on a street corner with no rope, with just like this dodgy little sound system, painting Frank Sinatra. I loved it, and I remember her watching that, and that was like 2000, one of those gigs I got with the flyer, right? And I remember her being there, and Herbie Treehead being there with his horse, and he was amazing. But then years later, she saw me at a book gig in the place Market Harbour, Al Fresco's, I think it's called, Arts Fresco. And remember her, and then by then I had the show with like no speaking, the rope, and I was doing the full show. And she was in the front row really laughing, and then she went, can I book you for a theatre spot? And she had this cabaret going in there, and she was in Le Clique, and it was a big hit. And it won the Olivier Awards, ended up being called Le Soirée for various reasons. But she had like Clark, who we talked about earlier, who became Mario, who's got this great street show where he was in that, and English Gents, who also had an amazing, and Ursula Martinez, and those are great acts. So she was in that, and it was a massive hit, won the Olivier Award, and she got backing from Mick Perrin, who was the producer for that, to do a show called The Crack. She was like, I want to do a variety show, not kind of like burlesque cabaret like Le Clique, but with a stand-up, and with she wanted to kind of even more variety. So she asked me to do that, and I used to close the first half of it in that, and she got Dr. Stewart, which a lot of people will know. Dr. Stewart, who's an old street performer from Covent Garden, who'd been to, wow, he was another guy I would stop and watch. He was just amazing performer. He was like mind-blowing performer, and he had this song called Yeah to do this mime dance to. He'd been really ill. She got him out of kind of enforced retirement to be in the show. And she had Woody Bot Muddy. A lot of people will know Woody Bot Muddy. And Peter Post was in it. Legendary street actor. He was doing it. So she had some amazing acts. And we did a run on the South Bank, 2009. The run on the South Bank was part of that. When they take over the South Bank, there was a spinning tent and the upside down cow. We did that. And then we did Edinburgh. And
what was it like going and doing? What was it like doing The Crack? Or was it just Crack? Was it Crack or The Crack?
The Crack. The Crack. Yeah. Crack, it was the play on The Crack, but it was spelled CRACK. But it was a play, I think, on
Yeah.
The Crack.
What was it like for you being on there? What was the experience of performing in that show and being around it?
It was brilliant. I loved it. Because I was like, I want to do more stage stuff. Oh, I'd done a gig for her in Blackpool before that, in the Grand, which is the National Theatre of Variety. It used to be a great festival in Blackpool called Shazam. And I did that for her in February 2009. She was like, will you be in this show? That was the first time. And then she had Stickleback Platypus, ballroom dancers. She had Earl Oakin. She had Marrower, hula hooper. She had Ursula in that. She said she's taskmaster, Amy, and she said to us, we're going to practice a curtain call. When I'm calling your name, you have to be halfway to the middle of the stage. If you are not halfway to the middle of the stage, when I'm calling your name, I will call you a cunt, and we will do it again. That was the rehearsal for the curtain call. Late first time. I was quite nervous because I was like, thanks for booking me, so I did that for her, did the South Bank, and then we did Edinburgh in 2010 in a speaker tent. And it was like Paul Morocco was in that show, and who else? Hot Nuts and Popcorn were in that show, and then it was like, I remember being up in Edinburgh and looking at the tent and going, it's kind of tough. I was busking during the day and stuff like that. But I remember looking at the tent and thinking, you don't forget this, because this is like, I remember seeing Paul in the show in like 95 up in Edinburgh before I was performing, thinking he's amazing. I remember seeing Earl
Paul Morocco on Friday.
Yeah. There you go.
Interview on Friday. There you go.
So I was in this show with these acts, like, it was like, wow, when I started 10 years ago, if I thought I'd be in with them in a Spiegel tent in Edinburgh, I'd be like, well, I'll have that. That's fine by me. I'll take it, So, it was brilliant. And then I started working with a company called Slightly Fat Features as well. So I was doing this with Amy, and then there's a performer called Grumpy Tom, who's used to busk in Covent Garden, and now has got a double act with Richard Garrity. It's very strong street double act that does the busking festivals, and he was doing shows. He'd been doing them since like 2000. I'd done the first one I did, I think it was 2007 for him. He lives down in Devon in a small town called Sidmouth, and he started putting on shows in the theatre down there, like variety shows, family-friendly variety shows, and he studied at Circus Space with Amy, actually. So he was old mates with her, but he knew a lot of acts through there, and he just was one of those guys who's really into the whole scene. So he knew a lot of acts. So he's putting on variety shows down there, and it took off, and he was selling out this theatre, and it's like 300-seater or something. But it's great.
Good going.
Yeah, no, it's good, and a lovely theatre, and then he was getting bookings for like local festivals like Exeter and all around Devon. We're like, what can you bring a show to us? And, book acts. And so I did a bill with him, somewhere 2008. Matt Ricardo was there, and Aaron Sparks and Bongo Bolero, some older people who know Bongo Bolero, and then it kind of grew, and he ended up with his like favourite crew. And then 2010, he went, I've got a little tour. We're going to go to Brighton Fringe and the Roundhouse in Camden. So in the show, there were 9 of us back then. So it was me. So he asked his favourite acts to win. It was me, Fraser Hooper, but he'd just moved to New Zealand, Herbie Treehead, Matt Bernard, Gareth Jones, Richard Garrity, Vince Henderson, who used to do a double act with Richard.
Oh, I know Vince,
Yeah, always in Edinburgh, and a musician called Rob Lee, and then Grumpy. There were 9 of us. Fraser moved to New Zealand. Vince dropped out, so we went down to 7. Fraser came back for the tour, so he was kind of guest. He was in it, but we knew he wouldn't be in it long term. We did. So we had this theatre show, proper variety show, and we all did so.
What was the process of developing that? How did you work out what you were going to do, where you were going to do?
Grumpy was always the boss. Grumpy always called it. So we'd do that first show was like I'd been working on some other ideas for shows. I did an idea. I talked about the chalk hook earlier. I had an idea for a show that was all about a massive wall that transformed by chalk drawings. There were like chairs you could sit on. There were revolving doors. There were cupboards you could open and things appeared. I'd got funding to develop it. And I was like, it was going to be a real clown show. Double act. It was called Duel, D-U-A-L, like a duel between these 2 guys with chalk thing. And as part of learning that, I'd gone to Circus Space and studied with Fraser Hooper. That was another development of my clowning. So that was 2008. 8, I'd worked with Fraser at Circus Space, like night school.
Yeah.
So that was part of where my clowning had kind of, come along.
Did you just learn clowning, or did you learn juggling, or anything else?
No, Fraser used to run a night classes clown school. Okay. Yeah. So I did that. I did clown, and then I did advanced clown the next year. So that was great. So I learned, and on the back of that, I developed a routine which I do in variety shows with toy elephants. That's thanks to Fraser. We did some like improv thing with props, and I had a toy elephant and something else. I still do.
So
that.
How did you guys? I've seen the routine. It's lovely. No worries. See the routine. It's a lovely routine. So Gwami's the boss. He's would you say director? Is director a fair description of his role?
Director, producer, MC. He's everything. So we rehearsed for like a week in down in the West Country, and it was like, so I basically had the elephants, the painting act. So it's like, right, John, you're doing those two, and then we're going to do this as a group thing. And then I wasn't very confident. It was like a theatre thing, and they were much more confident about mucking in together. And I was a bit of an outsider. They were old mates, really, to be honest. I mean, I knew them, most of them from the circuit, but they like Richard and Gareth and Matt and Herbie. They'd known each other a long time, and they like go back a long way. And I was like, I'm a bit kind of, and I just come at it from a different angle. So it was a bit. I remember one routine, they wanted to do a routine with all dressed up in tennis shorts, and one of them was going to climb. I think Gareth, I'm going to climb to his tennis racket, and I was like, I don't want to do it. It's not right for me. And they must have been thinking, you fucking prima donna. But I just felt comfortable with it, at the time. I mean, now I'd probably go, yeah, come on, guys. But
I think that's one of the nice things about you in the ensemble, and I have seen the show. I did enjoy the show a lot. And one of the nice things about seeing you in the ensemble is that you are different. You are a different character to everybody else. You do play differently.
Yes, I'm the kind of, I mean, we've all got our own characters, I think, in it, and
everybody does, but your character is, I would say, defined by the stuff you do as well as being very different from everybody else's. In the style, delivery. So sorry. Anyway, you guys are working together. You're writing this show. They've asked you to do some stuff.
Yeah. So the first show was like everyone does a solo thing, and then there's a group finale, and then we cobbled together some group stuff, and then it went really well. We played the Roundhouse, did a lot of studio theatre, lots of mates came in London, and it sold really well. And we played in Brighton, didn't go so well, but we had a great time, and it kind of was a really sort of bonding thing. And then the next year, towards the end of the next year, we wrote a new show. So we toured, we did a bit more touring with that one, and then we did a new show, and so we developed a whole load of new material, and I mean, I didn't want to.
Was that back in the same place, back in the training space? And
we worked in Battersea then, and we worked in a
Battersea Arts Centre.
No, it was a mate through a mate of theirs. It's public, and it was a pub that taken over, and the upstairs old function room was empty. We had this kind of derelict function room, and we rehearsed in there. And we ended up doing this magic routine, the world record attempt at 50 magic tricks in 5 minutes. And so then it was great because I was developing routines with other people. So I did that with Matt B. So he was my assistant, and that ended up, I think, really strong routine. We ended up with a song and dance routine dressed as sailors, which became a very strong routine, which was like, I was like, yes. Funnily, I was going, I'm not dressing up tennis outfit. I'm there just to say that. Doing it, but I mean, I always loved musicals, so it was like, yeah, this is brilliant. They were like, you sure you're happy with this job?
Did it start feeling more collaborative? Did you all feel like now you've joined as a group, now you're all mates, you're all throwing in?
It was really collaborative. Herbie left for 6 months, and he wasn't in the first version of that show. He was like, I don't want to perform. He was kind of like just having his thing, and he was like, I'm not performing, and he kind of,
I don't want to do it anymore, boys.
yeah, he was kind of a bit of that. So
Yeah.
it was really collaborative and it was fun. But I remember us, none of us really got nervous very much. It was always a lot of fun backstage. We all got on really well. You know, there wasn't a lot of fallings out. There'd been fallings out, nothing. And we'd always have fun, and we'd always have fun backstage, waiting to go on. But we did our first show of this new show, and we've been working for a week or whatever. We were waiting backstage to go on, and I think it was Shan came back before the show to go, good luck, boys. Shan, come and go on. People know Shan. And we were shitting ourselves, totally, like looking at each other like, I've never seen them at all like shitting at them, because half the audience were mates, right? It's like we'd only rehearsed for a week. The only other time I've seen this like that is, so the show grew and grew, and we had that show, and we had that show, we went back to the Roundhouse with like a new show, and then we played there 2011, and things sort of grew, and then in the end we ended up with a kind of like, this is the best show. It was kind of like a mash-up. We went through various incarnations, but stuff snowballed pretty fast, and we were doing a lot of gigs touring around, and which is kind of tricky because everyone made more money doing their own solo stuff, so it was kind of tricky. And like, my son was born in 2009, so it's kind of hard at you going out and doing the theatres and making less than you would make solo. But we were all really enjoying it, and we were on this kind of going up, and then we got, Gromby was really good at getting gigs, and we'd play little theatres here, and then we'd get a theatre that was really into us, and we'd go back, and it just grew, and the material was getting good, and we had enough for like 2 different shows really, and it was like, this is the best show. And then we played Pleasance in London. I don't know how I can't remember the order of it all, but basically we got a run in Edinburgh with the Pleasance in their courtyard in Edinburgh. For those
that's when I came to see you, I think, in that run.
Right, 2013 that was.
Yeah.
And they threw money at the show, and we had night accommodation, and we had this theatre which was a 450-seater, Pleasance 1, lovely space. We had who's the stand-up with the keyboards, who sits with the keyboards, very successful now.
Bill Bailey?
No.
Tim Mitchell?
No. It's like sort of like a small little, her name might come to me. He was
I believe he's very, very dry humour. Can't remember the name.
Very dry. Yeah. He was on after us. Giles Brandreth was on before us. So we played there, and it was like, the show was great, and we had this routine with White Tigers and the Sawing in Half. You know, Richard was sort of pretend illusionist, Ray Marvell, and the White Tigers would saw him in half, and we'd still doing the elephants, and I think I was shooting the dog by then. I had a dog that does a bullet catch. People got new things. We would string Gareth upside down, and escape from the roller ring film upside down, hung from the ceiling, and it was great. And everyone was buzzing on the back of it, and there were like producers chasing us and stuff like that. And on the back of that, we picked up Mick Perrin, coming back to Mick Perrin, who produced The Beak and produced The Crap for Amy, and then he picked us up as well. And we went to Montreal just for laughs, and we did a month there in 2014. Yeah, 2014, and we were kind of like off there, like kind of like off the main thing kind of program. We won an award there for like flavour of the festival show, or so I can't remember what the award was. We won some award. Just award winning it just for laughs enough, So we went there for a month.
Yeah.
And that's the last thing we did without Mick Perrin in charge of us. And then we did. I mean, we were buzzing, and we thought it might, like not a money maker, but it might be. I should say to Grumby, all I want, Grumby, is 6 months in the West End. With if we're doing 9 shows a week, just pay me enough to live on. You pay me 9 shows a week, you give me 100 quid a show. That's it, or whatever. Just like you give me a decent living wage. And so we started feeling, I mean, obviously everyone had a different vibe, and there's half the castles in the West Country and 4 in London. But started feeling like something right. And then Mick Perrin put us in for a Christmas run in Leicester Square Theatre in 2014, that Christmas. And we were there for like 20, booked us in for 20 nights. And what was now Le Soiree used to do a Christmas run on the South Bank in the Spiegel tent every year. And when they're in the country, he's there. When they're in England, he's their producer. Mick had us, and they all came to watch us on their night off in the Leicester Square Theatre. And we were like, the thing was, to me, it's like, we are going to be, because it was a family-friendly show, our show. Totally, always Gromley was like, it's family-friendly. And then there'd be like discussion about, with a routine at the end with us all dressed in togas, and Matt was like, flashes his ass, and Matt was always like, you've all got to get all your kit off before you put your togas on. So there was always things like that to be like, no, that's too close, We used to tease Gromley about it. But the vibe was, we're going to be the family, Mick Perrin's got the adult cabaret, Le Soiree, as it was then, down there. And we're going to be like the family friend that came to watch out. It was like, what great show, that's brilliant. It was like, yes. And the run was like, didn't take off. Didn't sell enough tickets. Some nights were pulled. We were on a bit too late. We were on at like 8:30, I think it was. I don't know. Anyway, it just didn't work out, It like, and then
what was the feeling in the group like?
We've done.
Because it seems like you guys are in high spirits up until this point, and this is the first kind of punch in the gut, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, because we were like up. We've been on it. I mean, there's been, and there've been times, we had 2 months journey down about that, and it's like, Grumby was in charge of it, and so he did a brilliant job with that. He got a lot. I mean, all those gigs we got, and getting us to the Pleasance one, and getting us in Leicester Square, and just for laughs. I mean. Not me, I couldn't have done that.
And so what happened? What happened after this then? After because it's not necessarily Gomway's fault that this happened. It's just one of these, isn't it?
Oh no, it's not Gomway's fault at all. No, he got us there. No, God, no, not the slightest. It was just like that. Seemed like, looking back again, it's like retrospectively, that seemed like Mick Perrin threw some money at that, and it seems like maybe, I don't know the ins and outs of it, but maybe he's reluctant to throw quite as much money at it again. We had posters we were like so excited. There was like posters on the tube. We'd be sending each other pictures of like, just seen our poster on the tube, just seen our poster in the Evening Standard. It's like, it's like we did some promo with a double-decker bus. To get the papers, I don't know if it ever did, but it was like we were like someone. I've still got it somewhere. A picture of someone next to a telephone box with our poster on the, It's like, so it was like, well, we've. I clipped out one of the ones from one of the papers, stuff. And we got when we were going to Edinburgh, we got top 20 shows to see. You know, we got one of those things in one of the papers, and you just think you're gonna maybe, you know, but there's a lot of maybes, aren't there? I've done stuff on the telly and thought, this is it. I remember doing something way back thinking, that's a big break. And no, just another little sort of thing on the journey, I reckon. But we still carried on gigging after that. We didn't stop after 2014. We still carried on working it a lot, and but we went back to Leicester Square Theatre. And I think
the TV experience you had that you felt was a bit.
Well, we lost you then, Matt. Say again. I lost you a bit, Matt. Say again. Oh, you broke up a bit. Oh, I've lost you, Matt Bowden. Are you coming back? I'm going to answer some of those questions. Do you ever play the... Oh, I don't know. Dave Pickens. Matt Lawrenson was working with Matt B at that time. Yes, he was. Matt Lawrenson. When did the tea drinking start? The tea drinking started in around 2005, I think. But I love the drawing bodies around the audience member's face. It was good drawing the bodies around the audience. That's Brian Hulse. It was good drawing the audience, drawing the body around the face. But it was, it could have been better. Can you still hear me, Brian Hulse? How about that? Can you still hear me? Let me know. Drawing the body around the audience member's face. Oh, he's back.
I always love is that every person who I interview, whenever I drop out, if I do, I always find people like peering over the comments, reading comments out.
I thought it was good. I thought it was a good way of filling.
Oh, it is very much so. So you've had this kind of punch in the gut at the Leicester Square Theatre. The show's not worked out. Lots of money's gone into it.
Yeah.
And so you've gone out and toured the show in other places now.
Yeah, it's difficult to remember it's difficult to remember it now. We went back to Leicester Square. We went to Yorkshire Fringe, which is a relatively new thing, which is the boss of Leicester Square Theatre was basically running the Yorkshire Fringe, and it was on. Some acts would go there on the way to Edinburgh. It was kind of like just before Edinburgh. It's only been going like 5 years or something. So, but it's a nice festival, and we played the speaker tent up there for him, and we were still touring, and there were regular gigs we were still doing. We used to do a theatre in Lancaster every Christmas. We did for years, and we'd take a show up there with a couple of guest acts, and then went back to Leicester Square Theatre with a did show in like 2017, I think, Christmas. That was a lot of fun. We went with new material, different stuff. And I was doing a Zen obstacle course, and I was doing a slapstick routine dressed as a bunny called Sad Bunny. And we were doing like a lot of fun group stuff. We had a lot of and
Did you feel like you'd broken your funk a little bit? Because I could imagine it must have been quite daunting going back to Leicester Square Theatre after you did the show in Leicester Square Theatre. You had all the publicity there to push the slightly fat features big show, and to go back there would be almost like revisiting the murder kind of thing, It
didn't feel like a murder. We didn't feel like you don't know at the time you've been murdered. And I think in 2017, we had a lot of fun with it. Maybe the pressure was off a bit. Maybe we didn't, maybe we hoped for too much. in 2014. I think it was 2017. Maybe it was just going to have a ball, and we had a lot of fun, and we had some fun new routines, and we'd had Petra Massey from Spy Monkey had been directing us from before we went to Edinburgh, and she's still coming and doing stuff with us, and that's great. You can't. I mean, you got to love that. That's brilliant.
Yeah. And then, so you guys working on that show to this day?
Well, we haven't done much. We did Grumwy's. I mean,
no bookings over the last 3 months.
We did. Last time we worked together was 2019 September. We went to Landshut Festival in Germany. So those of you who know the kind of busking circuit, the guy who runs that used to go to Edinburgh every year and watch shows. And I went there solo because it's predominantly a street festival, busking street festival. It's a good one. And so it's one of those ones, pay your expenses and blah, blah, puts you in a nice hotel, 3 good shows a day. One of them's going to be blind in, make good money. Now I've got like a strong busking festival show, not strong necessarily for making money in Covent Garden, but I wouldn't want to have to make a living with my show in Covent Garden. But
can we talk a little bit about that just very quickly? Because I have watched you do street shows, and I thought it was a captivating and entertaining and beautiful experience to watch as an entertainer.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Really enjoyed it. Really genuinely enjoyed it. That seems to me like a working street show, but you'd say no.
Partly it's cumbersome to travel, and it's also sort of materials heavy. So it's just that kind of thing of, I've watched a bit of Alakazam's top tips for street performers during the lockdown.
Check it out, everybody.
It's been nice, isn't it? People, performers doing odd stuff online. It's been great. So, I mean, it's been also interesting when I've talked about earlier about being analytical about the shows. It's been interesting listening to our kind of vocalized stuff that you kind of half know or maybe fully know, but you haven't really worked it out. You haven't sat down and written it down and gone. But I mean, that's why Al is one of the top earners, right? Because he's really worked it out. It's like Pete Dobbins. He's like, watching Pete Dobbins organising the show.
I'll be honest, I do get this feeling. I love Al. I think he's probably one of the biggest earning, tightest street shows in the world. I do get this feeling a little bit somehow. Sometimes when I watch it, it's like watching someone talk about how to make a cupboard. A little bit of a feeling with that. It's not so much the creative content making side, which is something you have a lot of, and perhaps from your artist background. It's more of the mechanics. It's the craft.
Yes.
You want someone to pay attention. This is how you will get people to pay attention. Yes,
that's true. I'll tell you what, it's a nice tie-in with that and like Covent Garden, and I've changed my show to make it the most efficient version of my show for busking, but I haven't changed the content really to make it efficient for busking. So, I still do 2 paintings in the show for busking as a rule. To make more money, but it might cost me like maybe a tenner a painting, right? With the paint and the paper and whatever, or canvas. I normally use paper for busking, so that's like
it's cheaper.
It's cheaper, right? So, like, cut out a painting, you've still got the big finish. You've still got one upside down paint. Lose a painting. Right. It's obvious, Al would just do that, like bang, wouldn't he? With no qualms, wouldn't be like, should I, shouldn't I? And then it's too much to carry around. It's like I can't really take it on the train. So it's like, get rid of some of your gags, lose the gags that require a big box, go back to your small box. I used to be able to go on the train, But anyway, one Christmas, maybe like I never really worked Covent Garden when I was developing my show. I didn't at all, and I used to think, I should work it sometime. And it used to be a bit intimidating, and people would talk about it, and then people would go to me, like Gareth, go, "Oh, you're not really ready for that." Half joking, but half meaning it, because he's like, oh, I know it so well. And then I just went, I've got to play it. And it's like 2014 or 15 or something. It's like, I'm just going to get a license and play it for fun. It's like I wasn't bothered anymore. So I know I'll be all right. And if it doesn't go all right, I didn't need the money at the time, particularly. And so it doesn't go all right, it doesn't matter. Just go and do it. And I knew enough people there. I could just turn up at Andy Christie. Just went, I'll introduce you to the office. I hope you get a license. It's not a problem. You won't have to do the audition. Half the acts knew me and half the acts didn't. And then I remember doing my first show, and the acts that didn't know me just came round who were there, all watched. It's like, what's this old fella going to do? It's like,
well, also as well, because you're doing something different, even by seeing you collect your props, you've not got a unicycle, you've not got a straight jacket, or clubs, or any of the normal tenets. You bring an easel out there, and that's something that instantly, as a performer, grabs your attention, because we well, at least I yearn for something different now, to see something I haven't seen before.
Yeah, there is that. Yeah, of course, and we all do that, don't we? We all like, oh, what's he got? If you see something different, but I can't remember what Christmas.
I'm still there. I've just got to nib to the side for a second. I'm still there. I can hear you. Right. Carry on.
But there was, I can't remember what Christmas it was. I don't suppose it was the Christmas we were in Leicester Square Theatre. Maybe it was, but there was a Christmas when I do a lot of book gigs. I do corporate gigs and the painting acts, and I still get commissions to do pavement drawings and stuff like that. But I had a Christmas not so long ago, and I didn't have one single gig. I had nothing. At one point, I had like all these possibilities for things, and then it all collapsed. And I had this Christmas run. I was just saying, Matt, I had.
I can hear you. Christmas run.
Yeah. So all the gigs, because a lot of my work is gigs and corporate stuff, and I was saying I still get commissions for pavement drawings. I get commissions for like unusual artworks. Can you do a massive 20-foot long collage out of pants or stuff like that through some of my sort of corporate agents? So I've got that side. Anyway, I had this Christmas, nothing, just like nothing, no work. So I was like, I don't know what to do. It's like, I'm just going to go busking. So I was like, well, it's hard out there, and it's like I'll go to Covent Garden. So I think I did like November through to like January, February.
Wow, you did the winter. You did the hard part.
Yeah. And I went up and I was doing it. I was coming in for the draw every day. I was going in midweek, everything. And
looking for those 34 minutes of daytime that you get in winter.
I know. It was tough. And I was occasionally I'd go over to the Tate and do a spot there. And I changed my show then. So the other acts were going. I remember talking to a few acts and Tony Roberts, I remember talking to, and then there's a few others. And people were, I've always tried to do this, and I partly, maybe it's because I wasn't trained as a performer, and partly maybe it's just in my nature, I don't know. But if people kind of make a suggestion about the show, I'll just go, even if I know I'll never use it, I'll go, yeah, thanks very much. Yeah, I'll have a think about that. That's really interesting. Yeah, but it is interesting, isn't it? It's interesting because it's like, well, it's like they've got an opinion. They're a member of my audience, so their opinion is valid. I don't have to use it. And then even if I don't think I'm going to use it, I might actually reflect on it later and go, you know what?
But even with those people that come up to you and go, let me give you a bit of advice now. The start was great, but why don't you just walk out and start painting at the beginning?
Yeah, there is. Well, that's something to reflect on, isn't it?
What, you're boring, is what they're saying, essentially.
But the interesting thing I got from Covent Garden, that run, because I was like, well, if I'm here, I've got to like make it work the best, make as much money as I can when I do get a show. Was someone, and it was, they went, I love your show. It's a great show. I can't remember. It's not someone else, and it might have been a combination of people. They went, you got a great show, but your show. I'm trying to find the right
framing.
Yeah, you've got too many mini finales. So it goes like that, and it goes like it kind of peaks, and then it goes drops, peaks. It's like the transitions are not like they're not a busking show transitions. They're a festival show transitions, right? Where you've like,
because you expect people to stay and wait.
People stay. They've come to watch your show. They're watching your show, and even if they leave, it doesn't matter because you've been paid by the festival. So you're doing, even if it's a busking festival, it's different to busking, right? And they went, you kind of going, you've been a bit spoiled, and you've not done enough. Or I'd bust more in towns where it's like you're the only thing. I'd go and visit a mate for the weekend and go, tell you what, I might go and just see if I can find a pitch, Or, I mean, sometimes I've been tipped off for a pitch, or, I've been visited that mate before and seen somewhere and gone, oh, you know what, I might,
Have you had the moment of being with a family and gone, oh, there's a pitch there? John, you're on holiday. You're on holiday, John.
Yeah, I have, yeah. Thankfully, at least I can't like just go and buy my props, so I couldn't like
Yeah.
I'm just going to buy a tennis racket and a whip.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So I learned there I changed my show. I changed the order of some of the routines so that it got more energetic towards the painting, and I changed where I did my hat lines so that they wouldn't leave. There was like, oh, you do your hat lines in the wrong. Someone just went, you do your hat lines in the wrong place. And I went, you're right. So I moved the hat lines, and I know it's tighter for busking because of that. And that was, I don't know where we started on this thread.
That was a winter in Covent Garden.
Yeah, but you were talking about, I was saying, I didn't make it as a busking show, and you were saying, you've seen it and it worked.
Oh, yes.
But, yeah.
So there's this whole thing about creativity, isn't there? But please carry on with your point.
But then I mean, I like working in Covent Garden, and I'll go back sometimes for fun, or sometimes because I need the money, But I'm like, it's not age for me there, because you don't get a show, and then it's like the materials, and then you do a show when you don't take enough. It's like, I paid 20 quid to do that show. I've got here. I can't get on the train with all my props. I've got to bring them up in my car and then leave them in storage, pay for storage. It's all that logistics.
Cost.
And so, but then I'll go and I'll get 2 shows. I'll get a good one on the West Piazza. I'll wait for the freebie on the North Hall. It'll work. I'll come away and go, cash, that for, I just earned that cash. Like, well, taxman might not know about all of it, and then it's like, that's a proper, if I could do that 5 days a week, I'd laugh, but I can't do it there. I just can't do it there. So I worked that winter. I went into debt.
What year was that?
It's not so long ago. It's like 16, 17, 2000. Yeah, 2016.
So it's the year, one of the years you came back to Leicester Square and you were doing the show. It must have been 16 then.
Yeah,
because you did the show. You did the run in Leicester Square in 2017. So it's going to be 2016.
We did. I think so. I think it was 2016. I remember it was hard, really hard graft. It kind of felt quite. I remember my wife going, "I'm proud of you for doing this." Because she knew I was working hard, but I mean, I wasn't making money. I was losing money doing it. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
And so, do you see in the future you taking your stuff back on the street? Considering all that, do you love it? Would you go back anyway?
I love doing the streets. I love doing the street. I still do the street. You know, I was in Christchurch in January. I was in New Zealand. I did 3 busking festivals in New Zealand before lockdown, and it was great. You know, I mean, I was in Christchurch World Bus. We used to be World Buskers, and I did that in 2000. Like I said earlier, I did that in 2003. I went back in 2011 when my show was proper, and had a great time. And that's what you could make big hats. It came back with a lot of money, and it was a great festival, and it was really heavily. The city loved it. I left there in 2011. A month later, that was when they had their massive earthquake, and the city's still recovering from that. And I went back, the festival was changed, the directors changed. Went back. Yeah, it's a completely different animal. I mean, it's got its merits, and it's in a different way, you know. So, but I did 3 busking festivals over there. I love doing the busking festival. It's great. You meet some great acts, and you've got freedom to do what you like, you know. And
what do you see? What do you see happening in the future for the busking festivals with this thing going on?
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because I'm doing Halifax Festival this year. So they emailed me.
Wow. Oh, you're booked still?
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, I wasn't booked, but she emailed me and said, Kelly, who I mentioned earlier in this, she emailed me. She's been asking me to go back a few times. And because I went back in 2011, and she, you know, there's been talk about going again. But she emailed me an online, we did a weekend online. I think they only do 6 stuff now. It used to be 10, but they only do 6. We're doing a weekend online. Would you do it? You've got to send us a 15 to 20 minute video, and you've got to have a way for the punters to pay you online, so the audience can watch it, and then so it's up to us to sort out the online payment. You know, but I've never done that. You know, cash payment.
I can help you with a few things. We can sit after this, and I'll send you a few links. For
that. I've since sorted it out because she hooked me. But thank you very much. But she hooked me up to someone who knew what to do. But that's going to be it, isn't it? It's going to be cashless. Well, it's going to be doing a show that make money will be difficult. For the
it depends. If everything opens back up, I think we'll be all right. But if it sustains in the way it is at the moment, it's kind of half open, half not.
Yeah.
Then who knows? You know, I think we will still have cash. I still see cash around. I've done a little bit of busking on terraces.
Have you?
So bars are open, yeah.
Right.
And so the feeling I've got on it is that people are in those bars. They're already arrived there. I'm not gathering anyone together more than they are already. I'm just entertaining them in situ where they are. And so I've done a bit of that, and there's still cash around. There's still cash to be given.
Right.
It's nowhere near what it was, but, you know, it's still there.
Yeah. I mean, I think I like the cash thing. I don't want to have to deal with the cashless thing, but I think it's going to be essential to make.
Yeah, you're going to need to have touch and pay.
Yeah, to make a living out of it. And then I've been working on. I have another street show I was working on for festivals, and I had a vision of like trying to break that in Covent Garden just for fun and taking it up during the weekdays and quieter pitches and stuff like that. And that was a show. It's like, I've got to be able to take this on the train. You've got to take this on the train. So it's like, right, it's a show, and it's a clowning show with the kind of finale with a magic trick. It's on a pole. It's got a bit of height. You know, it's like, right, it's going to be.
So you're going to move away from doing the painting?
Yeah. It was just for fun as much as anything else, and just like, you know, as I did more and more theatre stuff, I did. You know, I mentioned the bunny, the slapstick sad bunny, and we talked about the elephants. You know, I have a bullet catching puppet dog. I've been working on a theatre show for kids, you know, and I got funding to work on that. And Petra Massey was directing that for a bit. And you know, I've done a street show that's a massive chain reaction machine with an artist that all these props come out of a shed, and it's kind of like, and Mousetrap, that game. So it's like that kind of like.
Yes, yeah, I do. Yeah,
yeah. So things you might find in a garden shed that turns into a big chamber, and that's a kind of very gentle, clowny show with a big payoff at the end, 1 minute payoff from a 30-minute crowd build of clowning.
Yeah.
Like my own show, like an extreme version of my painting show. But so I just like, I want to do a street show that's solo, manageable. So I've been working on this, and I did it a few times last year, and I did a couple of festivals that were like tryout, kind of did something in Bath, and then I had a couple of gigs, and I went, what can I tag it on the end and do an extra show just to try it out? So yeah, I was thinking I'd try that out and try and run it in. It's a kind of shonky magic trick built around a lot of clowning.
But in the end, it's the clowning, it's the play, it's the character that sells things off. You don't have to do big stuff. If you had to give advice for artists in the future, people who may watch this, and take some knowledge from your experience, what would be the advice you'd give them?
I remember talking to Jack Beavis, the Covent Garden. Well, he's not Covent Garden.
Well, no one's Covent Garden really at the moment too much, but he's probably one of the better young creative magicians working on the street.
Yeah,
he has a creative magic show. I mean, that already puts him above a lot of other people in terms of creative output, at least.
Yeah. He's got a very interesting performer, and one of his retirements from Covent Garden, he's had 2 or 3, I think. And
he's only 20. Is he 22 now? 23?
24, I think. I don't know. Anyway, he's I've talked to him quite a lot because he quite likes my style, my performance style, and then I've talked to him about his shows. So, we kind of. So he was like, I'm retiring, I'm moving back to Wales. But I said to him, walk your own path. That was my thing, which I've said to a few people. But I don't know whether that is just an easy thing to say, but it's not a very big bit of advice. But I think something in it, in that what we were talking about earlier, is that if you find your own voice, you're gonna make stronger work, and whether that's, I think there's a lot to be said for sort of studying it, and some people study it in different ways. I never took the notebook. I remember talking to Petra Massey about this, and I never saw her working in a street show. If any of you out there haven't seen Spy Monkey, then I recommend you go and see them or watch something online. But she's very, very funny clown. And I remember her telling me about watching acts in Covent Garden and just writing notes. And I know there's other performers who like just gone there and watched stuff and kind of gone, I'll have a bit of this and a bit of that and a bit of that. And there's a place for that. But I just think in the end, you've got to make it your own, and feel comfortable in your own skin with what you're making, because you're going to be stronger in the long run. There's a good living to be made for buskers. I think there's a good living to be made out there for doing the generic shows, because you'll find enough members of the public who haven't seen it or see it so infrequently that they'll still be wowed by someone climbing up a unicycle and juggling. But, I think to kind of push yourself, it's exciting to like kind of find another way up, but it's also exciting to make good, to make a great living. And this some of my best mates have like worked in the same job for 25 years as accountants. There's a guy I went to school with he's had 2 jobs in his life, as to work for 2 different companies as accountant, and it doesn't mean he's less happy than he's provided for his family and he's done all this, and that's a brilliant way to spend your life.
But we're not talking about happiness, though. I'd imagine when we're talking about shows and we're talking about doing good for people as they get older. You're not necessarily talking about those people being happy. You're talking about having a good quality, sellable, capable piece of work.
Yes,
No?
I think yes. If it's about making a good quality, sellable piece of work, don't rest on your laurels and don't just go. I'm done with that. I think I look back over my time, and I think you kind of go. I remember some seasons. If you talk about the outdoor season, like summer, yeah. And when I used to get a lot of bookings through certain agents, and you might be busy summer of less bookings, and I'd kind of reflect now and go, I was resting on that work and just like doing that work, just churning it out. But don't do that. There's a place for that, I think, because there's a place for kind of lying fallow sort of thing and going. Because you can't just, there is a place for like bedding in a piece of work and going. Also, you just rejuvenate, and it's a long journey, and then sometimes I go, oh, you were a bit lazy that year, and then I look back, and I do like making new stuff, and so, for me, I like doing that. So I look back and go, hang on a second, you did that, and you were thinking about this, even though you spent the summer. You've got to make a living, so if you've got a strong show and it's getting bookings, it's like don't like fucking kill yourself and go, oh, I've got to be changing it, I've got to be making it. I was in New Zealand in Auckland was the first festival I did, and there's one of the acts there, and they went, it's a busking festival, and like I said, my show it doesn't change that much. The basic premise of it, I was like, oh, the tips in Covent Garden the other winter, maybe change the order of this and that, but it didn't change. And now I've got this new running around with kids thing. It's great, and that's dropped in the past 2 or 3 years. But there was a performer there, and she went, "If you've seen me before, it's the same show, just a few new gags." And she had a really good line about it. It's something like, once you've got a good one of these, you don't throw it away. I can't remember. It was much better packaged. But she's, it's like, and I went, yeah, that's fair enough. She said, once you've got one, you don't give it away. It's like it's a keeper sort of thing. Because tight, she spent like 10 years getting a really tight busking show, and it's like, I'm not going to chuck it out. So if you've seen it before, it's pretty much the same because I spent a long time finding it and I found it. I'm not going to lose it now. It's like keep it. So it's the same with mine. But it's kind of like what's nice about that is you've got a show there, and that's safe and that's solid. And now you can go off and do, something else. You always can come back to that. So I've always got that. And then hopefully, you get work with that, or you can make money. Like I said to you, I go to a town and go and visit my mates in Hastings or whatever, and, Barnstable and or here or Norwich or whatever. You go, oh, there's a pitch. Is that a pitch? And then you ask your performer mate or ask around on Facebook. Does anyone know there's a pitch? Or check it out, just wing it. And
then it's there.
It's always a chance for that, isn't there? But I haven't got any nuggets. I'd always be working on something. I've been working on something in lockdown, with a hat.
I will say this: you say someone can get a show and they can take that show for 10 years, and that could be their show. But that show can be a standard show that they keep for 10 years, or it can be a show where they put their heart and soul into it and it has their voice in it and it speaks from things they believe of,
Yes. I mean, you can watch a show that is magical and beautiful, and you don't necessarily know if they're like they just can be a fantastic performer, right? Because there are actors out there, there are like brilliant actors out there who can act a great show, and I think, some. I don't know. That's an interesting kind of discussion whether like some people that in a previous time in their life have learnt the more interesting and quirky things to do in their show, and they can just now deliver a great show. But whether they feel it's like, well, it's kind of like they're doing a very good job, so it's making a difference. But whether they're kind of invested in it, like some people are invested in their shows, is I don't know. That's kind of interesting.
Well, it's interesting. Interesting process.
Yeah, it's interesting, but who knows? Yeah.
So, John, we've been talking now for 2 hours and 40 minutes.
Well, it's
been a wonderful time.
Yeah.
I'm gonna. Well, I think my bladder might explode at any moment now.
I've survived really well. I'm surprised.
You've done really well, yeah. Haven't you been drinking the bloody wine?
Yeah.
I think I made a mistake of hitting 4 cups of tea at the beginning of the interview, and now it's pressing quite aggressively.
Yeah.
John, great having you on. Absolute pleasure talking. Really interesting things to chat about. Really interesting show. Interesting person. Pleasure,
nice
mate.
to talk to you, man. And well done with this.
Thank you, mate. Thank you. Appreciate that. And thank you for everyone who's been interviewed so far. For everyone watching here, thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for watching. Thank you for John. Everybody, goodbye. Goodbye. No idea when this ends, so I keep doing goodbye.